welcome to the show, guys. As you've probably seen from my a billion different advertisements, we have a guest in the house, someone who's actually probably way better at this podcasting thing than I will ever be, Mr. Bobby Roast Beef from Jigs and Biggs. I wanted to bring him on for a couple of reasons. One, of all the people I know, see, got sound effects and everything. I wanted to bring him on because of anybody who can carry on a random conversation while drinking alcoholic beverages and talk fishing. It's me and Bobby. And also, he has a really cool event coming up that I want to have him talk about, him give a few details on, because you guys might be interested if you're in the listening area and are able to attend. So I'm going to kick it to Bobby to have him talk about his portion of it.
All righty. Well, so let's talk about it. We're crossing at Jigs and Biggs another little milestone that we've set for ourselves. About 2 years ago, we celebrated our 100th episode, and right on schedule this January 13th, we're celebrating our 200th episode. And last time we did this, we had a live show recording, had some special guests come in. We gave away some prizes. We did all kinds of good stuff, and we raised some money for a really good cause. A local environmental cause called Make Massachusetts Fishing Spots Great Again. Hold on, I got a message coming in here. Oh, there we go. That's in the private chat, Binya.
Oh, is it in the wrong chat? That's what it was. Okay, there we go.
So we're doing the 200th episode this time around. We wanted to shift gears a little bit and do a game dinner. It's kind of been on my vision board for the podcast. That's been floating around for a while, was to do the idea of doing a game dinner. And there's a local restaurant in Chicopee, Mass. Some real Chicopee shit's going on there. And we've got it's called the Munich House. It's a German spot. Their menu is out of this world, but they're known, very well known for having unbelievable game dinner events. So I reached out to them. We booked the event. It's on Saturday, January the 13th. We're less than 40 days away. I think we're at 35 right now.
Close.
We're getting there, and so we're just selling tickets, and we're raising money for an unbelievable organization called Veterans Inc., which is, I say they're a local organization, but they're national. They have satellite offices all over the country. And Veterans Inc., we had Christian DeLucio from Veterans Inc. on the show to talk about what they do. And the best way I can sum it up is where if there's a veteran that's struggling with addiction, homelessness, or about to be homeless or something like that, and that's in a bad way, that needs some outreach, there's a lot of systems that are in place. And unfortunately, sometimes that vet might go to one of these organizations, say for a homeless issue, but they're not what they would say is homeless enough to be able to intervene. Veterans Inc. is a different sort of situation where they try to catch everybody who's fallen through the cracks. Their sort of plan of action is to intervene as soon as possible to fix a problem that's not as bad as something much further down the line, so that somebody else can get involved. So they do a lot. They kind of do it all, like addiction, homelessness, job, placement, all kinds of stuff. And it's a great organization. And my co-host, Sean the Fisherman, had actually worked for Veterans Inc. for a while. When we were trying to come up with an idea of who we wanted to raise some money for, it was a no-brainer that Veterans Inc. was the move. So we managed to put it together. It's going to be a whole lot of fun, and we're going to have a blast. There's some things that we're going to do differently this time. Like, we're going to be prepared for the show. Last 100th show, the mics were live, and we were like, holy crap, this is amazing. Holy cow. We had this little intro, story to tell and everything. And it was awesome. But then we gave away the check to the organization, with all the money that we made. We had the big, photo moment with the huge check and everything. I got to dig that up too. But we had that, and then that was it. We kind of blew our load on that one. And we're like, okay, so what do we do now? And luckily, we had some really great guests to come and fill things out. We had a room full of amazing guests that were there just to see the show. But we did a little AMA. We're probably going to do something sort of like that here. But we're going to have some fun. I think we're going to have a whole lot of fun. It'll be a good time. And the food's going to be out of this world. Hopefully you guys will have some laughs. We got some great prizes. I actually just got a prize in the mail today from Andy's Heat Your Meat, which is a whole spread of all the seasonings that he offers. Plus, I think there's a couple of bonuses in there. Yeah, it's really, really good stuff.
My dogs tried to eat a container of that. The one that came in the last Dark Horse box.
Oh,
I had it on my desk.
Yeah.
My wife hands it to me and she goes, "They almost got it." And I'm like, to be honest, it probably would have been a great deterrent from them chewing crap
It
off
would
the
have.
gas, because as soon as they bit through that, they would have regretted it.
What do they say?
You gonna learn today.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
that
That
was
stuff's
funny.
hot.
So
It's
it's
hot.
funny. The 200th episode, the main reason I was excited to go is because I listened to the 100th and I felt like
Yep.
it was like, man, that sounds like a good time. Like the whole time I'm listening to this, I listened to the whole thing. Like
Yeah.
I even listened to like the auction part, the raffle part, and all that.
Oh, yeah.
I'm just like I'm literally finding myself listening to this while all that's really honestly there is this Bobby yelling out people's names as they go pick up their prizes, and I'm like, I
That
want a prize.
that was the worst part of doing that show when we recorded it. Is I was like, we definitely entertained a ton of people,
Yeah,
but I don't think that it landed the raffle stuff or anything like
yeah,
that. It's just was a bit too much. But yeah, I mean, we're going to have obviously much more of a plan. We're trying to keep it kind of timely. It also helps too that we've got Joe. This time we didn't have Joe at that first episode. It was us, just the two of us. Now with Joe, we've at least got that third person to kind of intro. And Joe, here's a little sneak peek. But Joe early on was like, "Oh, I was going to suggest we should use the My Two Dads theme song, for the next show or the next podcast." And I'm like, let's go ahead and find that and download
I mean,
that, put it in the back, storage of the brain, and so we might walk out to that song. It could be interesting,
I think the funniest part about that episode is when you played your intro and you're like, "This is a real song," and then like you actually played the actual song.
Oh yeah,
And I was like, "Oh, okay, that's funny." I could just tell like you were just having fun with it, like you were just doing it.
absolutely.
The thing is you do have some experience with live events though, because you have your shows and trivia and stuff like that. You do
Yeah.
DJs
Oh yeah,
and
yeah.
stuff like that. So you were able to. I didn't realize, like I didn't think about it, but yeah, you probably were just kind of ad-libbing it the whole time because you
Totally
guys
just
really
for
didn't have a plan for it before.
Yeah.
That's funny.
It was really, really casual, and there was a lot of learning that happened at that show. So this
Yep.
one, I think I'm expecting is going to just be that much better. I think it'll be really, really good. So we're gonna have a good time. It's gonna be a blast.
And I think the thing that's significant too is like I was thinking about this today is like you could put out 200 episodes. It's not just a matter of putting out 200 episodes.
Yeah.
It's the following too. Like you guys have a huge following on Instagram. You have, I don't know what obviously Spotify doesn't tell me your analytics, but I know I discovered your guys' podcast just searching through Spotify. And it's mostly because I like to listen to podcasts while I'm fishing. So why not listen to a fishing podcast? But yours isn't like, and it's going to sound negative, but it's positive, is it's not like all technique all the time. It's not serious angling.
Yeah.
Like I love Bailey and I like listening to his show, but if I'm just listening to something to have it in the background to entertain me while I'm not catching fish, I don't necessarily want to learn how to drop shot. I want to learn about some shit that happened in Chicopee that Sean's telling me a story about, or Joe telling us about his motor having a problem because he can't charge his batteries because the thing fried. Like, you know what I mean? It's like you guys tell stories in addition to the actual like fishing content. So you have a little bit of everything for everybody. It's not just one-sided of a, show.
Exactly. No. You're absolutely right. Like it was obvious. I had done a Christmas episode. It was like a collaboration with Paddle and Fin and Serious Angler. Bailey was a part of it. Tackle Talk. And I was when Andrew had reached out to me and was like, "Yeah, we'd like to have you on." I was like, "Are you freaking serious? You guys are like real podcasters. Like, what's going on. All right, okay, cool. We'll do this." And they all were kind of agreeing. They're like, "Yeah, you are like the outlier show. Like you're more of a different format entirely. Like you're more like a morning show than you are like a typical itemized little podcast." And that's kind of what I wanted to do, like a conversation. Really, I say it all the time in the interviews. That it's all about fishing stories like that. It's really what it was all sort of designed for, was just people sharing their stories, and that's never going to go away. I always want to be able to incorporate that somehow. So that's, if you can have a conversation with somebody, you can learn that way. You can pick up things. You also can just get entertained, and sometimes like that's just as important. You know what I mean? Yeah, so we have a good time, and I'm totally comfortable with our little space in the fishing world, and I also like that we've grown to a point where we can have guests on that have a whole lot more experience in specific areas of fishing, and we can learn from them and have a good conversation. And like when we've had in the interview that I have coming up this next episode, I'm talking with this guy Carter, great dude. He's from South Dakota. And we start talking, and we got on topic of one time when Alex Rudd was on the show, and I forget what the technique or whatever it was that we were talking about, but he was like, "Yeah, it's really cool because you have folks on every once in a while that can share a little bit of insight about different stuff in fishing or just the fishing industry." And it's pretty awesome, man. I love it. I love this show. I mean, even if it was just me talking to a guest on Zoom, I'd still have just as much fun with it.
See, it's funny because you're the reason I started doing a podcast. Is really the reason, because I saw.
You're saying that I'm your inspiration.
You are my you really are. Like,
I'm the reeling in your life.
It is funny too. It is funny because what it is too is like I realized, and it's actually Alex Rudd is another example of that that influence. So I thought that YouTube fishing had to be done a certain way. I really did. I thought it had to be commercialized. I talk about the baits. I have a specific format, all this stuff, right? And then I discover guys like Mikey Balls, and I discover guys like Alex Rudd, that Alex Rudd is sponsored by Pure Fishing, and he's like, I use Z-Man. Like, you know what I mean? So it's like, he's not that classic guy that's like, oh, you need to use this bait because it's the best bait, and this is the bait. He's like, I'm fishing. And I'm going to tell you guys a story about fishing. And then podcast was the same way. Like I didn't want to do the routine crap. I didn't want to have a segmented show where everything sounds professional and it sounds like I wrote a script before I got on there. I just wanted to get on the internet and ramble because honestly, some of the best conversations I've ever had have been at the boat ramp. Yeah. And I was like, let's just bring that online when I can't fish, because as you know, this time of year, man, unlike PJ, who goes wading out into streams to catch steelhead this time of year, our fishing's kind of done. So we need something else to do in the meantime. So talking fishing is a perfect way to go.
I got a great trip planned for Christmas Eve. We're gonna be doing some fishing on Christmas Eve, me and my son. So
that's awesome.
Look forward to be talking about that one there.
Nice. Yeah, he's going to be a guy for multi-species. You know I'm trying to get him into multi-species because he does like bank. He does like bank sends fly fishing. So he does a lot of that. You know, he doesn't just cover bass. He covers a lot of different stuff. So,
you know, today, like,
did the finger right, PJ? Look, I did the right direction.
You got it on the right direction and everything.
That's perfect.
Stupid mirrored camera.
Man, that's crazy. That's crazy. Oh, you got merch, Binya. I just noticed your shirt. Look at that.
Dude, so I will tell you, it's really not merch.
It's an
Ninja transfers.
Yep.
But this is actually PJ's. I just haven't mailed it to him yet.
Gotcha.
I'm doing this more for the trade shows and stuff. I'm making some of my own stuff just to advertise.
Yep.
But if anybody wants stuff, I'm more than happy to. I'm going to start doing giveaways and stuff too, where I think I'm going to give away like t-shirts and stuff like that, but it's not going to be anything fancy. It's just iron on stuff that I can throw on. This is actually a Bass Dash.
Mm-hmm.
If you see the logo right there, I just threw it on a Bass Dash hoodie because I wanted to start doing it.
You got to do. Yeah.
I've looked into like those Printify and all that stuff, like kind of like what you guys do, but I'm not big enough yet to justify the cost of setting up a store to really like have the upfront stuff done. It's just not worth it. So
I'll tell you, man, you know, everybody wants merch. Everybody asks us all the time, do you have merch available? We do. I don't love the sources where we get our stuff from. You know, it's like the shop changes individually. We had it good when we had a local shop doing it. Yep. The problem was that we weren't getting enough in sales for them to set up and do all the production on that day. Yeah, exactly. So they weren't turning it around fast enough, and eventually they just stopped. The best part was they never told us they stopped producing merch. People were just like, "Oh, yeah, I keep trying to order and it keeps getting refunded. What's going on?" So we spoke with them, and it was a mess. It was a mess. Funny. So it's tough, you know. And we're not an apparel company, so it's like making and housing all this stuff, especially if it would be one thing if all we did were hats,
Right.
You just
Yep.
do like,
hats
hey,
are
I've got
easy.
100 hats. Cool. We're going to do this. But as soon as you start talking about anything that's got to be a different size, it gets tough.
That's what I thought about doing, honestly, if I was going to start selling merch, was I was going to do, so those iron-ons, I have a couple of hats. A lot of stuff that I've made for my own channel stuff is just iron-ons, but I just buy the trucker hats with like the cloth front panel because they're adjustable. So they're one size fits all, and you can iron it right on the front, and you don't have to, I could buy a pack of 20 hats and then just make them as people want them. But anybody watching, if you guys really want merch, hit me up, hit me in some comments and let me know. I'll think about it if we get enough participation. But a lot of this is just trade show prep. I'm gonna be running around with eBay a little bit.
Oh, nice.
So I talked to Chris and I was like, hey, I was asking him what shows he was gonna be at, and I was like, dude, if you want, I'll come down early and just spend the day. If you're gonna be at like Springfield Sportsman shows, is the one definitely I'm going to.
Yeah, he'll be there. We'll be there. We just actually got our booth assignment.
Did you?
Yep.
Nice. So yeah, I told him, I'm like, dude, if you guys want, I'll come down, I'll hang out in the booth all day, and that way when you guys want to go have lunch, you guys can go chill. I'll keep running the booth so you guys can keep stuff open and you guys can wander around, and I'm more than happy to hang out, because honestly, hanging out for the day is fun. And I'm like, I know you guys are going to be there, and there'll be a bunch of other people there. There'll be, probably Nor'easter's probably going to be there again, and there's a bunch of guys. I'm going with business cards this time because I'm really trying to interview more people in the industry and just bring them on to talk about their products and stuff like that, just because it's fun for me to learn about like we had the guy who owns Turniacs on my other podcast.
Oh,
we did a whole interview
I remember
with him. And it was really cool because like I learned about a whole side of the fishing industry I don't know about. When you talk to bait painters and you talk to these small guys, it's like you hear about their story and their passion. And it's very much like what you do with your interviews. It's cool to have like that other person to bounce the idea off. I don't know if I could do a show by myself. I need another personality to bounce stuff off of. And PJ just sits here and laughs at me and then, tells his story, and then I tell my story, and then we're like, bye guys. And then that's the end of the show. So,
hey, it works.
You got to go with what works. If it plays well, you got to go with it.
Yeah, exactly. Just roll with it. Lean in, as they say. Lean in.
That's it.
That's
absolutely
crazy. Nice.
But yeah, no, it's gonna be crazy, dude. So I was gonna tell you, you're gonna laugh at this. So I didn't even think about it today. I think my neighbors are gonna call the cops on me.
Why is that?
Oh boy.
So today I don't even register with it. So today I was making baits in my shed.
Oh, okay.
This sounds like some Chicopee shit. This is a Bobby roast beef, some Chicopee shit type of conversation. So I'm sitting in my shed in my backyard, and I had brought my dog out because it was like 40 degrees today, and she likes to run around. So I hooked her on her runner, and I was making baits in my shed, and she starts whimpering. Now, keep in mind, I'm in pajama pants and a hoodie in my wooden shed in my backyard, and I come out with a full respirator mask on, wandering around my backyard to let my dog back in because she was. So I'm pretty sure. And then, of course, there's like weird smoke coming out of my shed because I was melting plastisol in there. So I'm sure they think I'm making meth in my backyard right now, because when I'm melting that plastisol, it builds up in that shed. And then when I open up the door, the heat difference makes it steam out of the building. So I'm absolutely sure that they probably think I'm like cooking meth in my backyard because I'm walking around in pajamas and a fucking respirator.
Are you planning on going to the Columbus Fishing Expo?
Yeah, I should.
Because
dude, I did it the other day.
Brown loves meth, and
does he?
You might have a big sale there.
Dude, I did it one day. I did it one day. I used to do it. I have a breezeway like right behind this wall, and I used to do it in there. And one day I was in my boxers because it was so hot. And I went to school with 2 neighbors up, and her kids came walking down through. And of course, they're fairly familiar with me, fairly comfortable with me. And they're like, what the fuck are you making? Because I'm sitting there with a Pyrex measuring cup stirring a green liquid with a respirator mask on and my boxers sitting there with the door open.
How'd the plastics turn out?
They came out good. So actually, dude, it's funny. I'm starting a new series on my channel. So I'm doing a bait making series for the fall. Well,
Okay.
I'm recording it now, and then I'm going to release. I'm going to try to do like one a month.
Oh,
And I
there you
did
go.
like a science experiment with how much salt to use, because I realized, I actually learned, dude, that
Mhm.
I wasn't putting enough salt in my baits at all, not even close. So what I thought was enough salt, when I did a test with a fish tank in my kitchen, yes, redneck.
Mhm.
You know,
That's what you were
test.
asking for the fish tank on Facebook for.
That's what
Yeah.
I was
Oh,
like.
jeez. Okay.
Yep. So all of my baits that I made floated. They didn't sink at all, not even a little bit. So I wasn't putting nearly enough salt.
Yeah, yeah. If they're floating, that's one thing. Although
Now, granted, with the hook, they
Yep.
probably are heavy enough, but without the hook, they did not sink at all.
Yeah, that's rough.
This right here is there's no truer statement than that. I've got some burn marks on my legs from this.
That's like cooking bacon
Plastic.
naked. You know, don't ever cook bacon naked.
Nope, don't do it. I've done that too. Yeah, it's crazy. So what I did is I ran an experiment with like how much salt I needed to make them not like because you lose durability the more salt you add.
Yeah, I mean, you do, but like at the same time, like, when was the last time you were like, I put on this soft plastic and it lasted me, a decade?
Oh
You
no,
know?
yeah, true.
Yeah. I mean, it's just like, and people talk about durability as if it is that is the die, like live or die of a bait,
Yeah.
And I'm kind of like,
No.
man, like I want to have decent action, and it's like even if it's a great bait, like they come in a multi-pack for a reason.
Yep. Well, the thing is too, that's actually a good point, and that's something that actually be a good topic for podcast is like Kitex, for example. One of the probably one of the best, well-known, caught so many fish on them. They're done after a couple fish. This is how they are. But if you don't make them the way they make them, because I've learned that, because I bought the Do It mold slick shiner mold, which is a kind of Kitex style mold. The softer you make them, dude, the more hunting action, the more they really look like a real minnow.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you're dealing with, like, up here, we have a lot of clear water, or cleaner water. And, in those situations where you've got any like decent visibility, it makes a difference. It really does.
It does.
There's a plastic, and it was a Cabela's brand that I had found. This plastic, it's like a 3-inch shiner bait. It's got like a V shape to the body.
Kind of like that.
Yeah, that's probably it. Yeah, except
this is the Cabela's version when they bought out Cabela's.
Yeah, and I'm telling you, it's just like I go through them. They get ripped up quite a bit. I usually throw them on like open hook, like 1/8 ounce net heads, and they get torn up like crazy. But if they're catching fish, I don't care. You know what I mean? Like that's
actually why I started pouring plastics, because I didn't buy any worms last year. I didn't buy a single worm last year. I made all my own.
Nice. I considered getting into that just to make certain things, and I was one of those things was swim baits, little 2 through 4 inch swim baits. I'm like anywhere in that window. Honestly, even up to 5 now. I'm using enough of them. Where I looked into it, but I was like, just the cost for the molds to be able to do it, plus everything else. I'm like, is it worth it? Because I look more at my time. Like, it's saving me enough to make it worth my time to make these baits. And I'm like, I don't really know that it is for me,
So for you, it might not be. So for me, the tackle store that I was working with that was giving me a discount that I told you about, they're done. They're shut down.
Oh, really?
So the store itself was owned by a guy who passed away and didn't leave a very good will. And the kids inherited the business and just sold it.
Oh, gotcha.
But they didn't even sell the business. They just sold the inventory and walked away.
Yeah.
So I don't have a local shop anymore to go get stuff. So if I want to go, I'm driving 40 minutes to Richards.
Yeah.
As we like to call them. That's it. That's all I've got. I don't have a Bass Pro. I don't have a lot of tackle stores around. So I have to drive a considerable distance.
That's how it is. Like for me, I mean, really, if I want fishing tackle locally, I can drive an hour and a half to get out to Berkshire Bass. Right.
Okay.
I can drive about that far in the opposite direction to go to Bass Pro. I can go to West Hartford, or not West Hartford, East Hartford, and go to Cabela's there. But still, that's a significant distance. I can't just run. For me, it's Dick's Sporting Goods and Walmart is an option, I guess. But I don't. I stay out of that social experiment as much as humanly possible. That's not my scene, man.
Literally the reason I started making baits was because I was doing really, really well on the green pumpkin easy shiners.
Yeah.
And I was killing it on them. And then I couldn't get them because I think everybody else was killing it on them.
Yeah.
So then no tackle stores in town had them. No one had them anywhere. And then I started looking around and I was like, if I buy this, like you said, not cheap. I think it was like $180 for the Do It mold, slick shiner mold.
Yep.
But I could make my own. So then all of a sudden I could make my own green pumpkin. I could make my own black blue fleck worms. And I started experimenting with it. And what was nice about it is the beauty of the Plastisol stuff, I will say, from a conservation side, is you get a wacky rig worm, they rip it in half, you throw it in a Ziploc bag, you can take it home. You get enough of those, you can remelt them and make more.
Remelt them and make more,
That's where you save money. You can make a lot from a single gallon of Plastisol.
Oh yeah.
But for me, it's about the weird experiments. It's about I made one mistake that I'll never make again is I thought I'm going to put power bait in the Plastisol while it's hot.
It's a bad idea.
To see if I can make a Plastisol power bait scented bait.
Did you vomit?
No, actually. So here's what's funny. It actually doesn't smell awful. Again, I have a respirator, so I don't know.
That's true. Yeah, that's true.
But those volcanoes that you do in school? It turned into that. It just bubbled up out, like it just blew up and started spewing outside of this measuring cup. And I was like as soon as the yeah. Dude, as soon as that shit hit the Plastisol, it started going. It sounded like bacon cooking.
Yeah, I believe it, man.
And I was like, oh no. And then it's just growing out of this container. And I'm like, oh, that's why they say not to remelt power bait. Okay, I get it now. There's something in the scent that reacts to the Plastisol and it freaks out. It was an unusable brick.
And you knew he fucked up.
So I've done a lot of little weird experiments like that where I'm like, that's not a good But the other thing that's cool is you can make weird colors that you can't make.
Yes,
that you can't
exactly. Buy. Yeah. Although sometimes when you're playing that game of different stuff, like a random mixed bag, if you're doing that, sometimes you can't recreate that color exactly right. And that can be a bit of an issue. Like I was looking at getting into it just cut and dry. Like I throw green pumpkin in everything. Sometimes, but I'll have spike it markers to like do some additional detailing if I need to. Put a little orange by the throat, throw a little chartreuse on when it's a little bit dirty. I got some blue markers and red too, like all kinds of stuff. When I do this, when I'm throwing stuff like that, I was just looking at throwing that one color. So that'd be great. I can take all those torn plastics and just remelt them down. But yeah, you're right. It's just, for me, it's just the time, Plus, I've taken this really, really bad habit of going out and looking at, just stocking up and saying, okay, so I'm going to get 5 packs of, or they're in stock, the 5-inch fat impact Kitex, I need those. That I use for, swim jigs and big underspins. And, okay, so the 4-inch, that's for like somewhat downsized. And then same thing with the 3 or the 2.8s, downsized yet again. I usually don't buy like the 3.5s as much. No. Or is it 3.5 or 3.3? I forget. But I usually don't end up picking those up. But I'll get them all in the same, like 2 colors. One that's got a little bit of like silver or white flash in there. And the other one is just straight up green pumpkin. Because that's the forage that we've got, is bluegill.
That's what I do.
Perch.
It's funny because I started doing what I do is I do weird variations of green pumpkin.
Yeah. That's not a bad
So like
thing.
I'll do a little bit darker green. So it's really weird. I did actually, I literally made an episode today for my show, and what I did is remelt. So what I do is you get a little puck in the bottom of your measuring cup that's
Yep.
like almost unusable because it's not enough to pour a full bait. So what I
Yeah.
do is I save them up, and then I'll make like a quarter cup of this clear plastisol, throw them in, and then you just start mixing them, right? And you just start adding a little bit, and it always comes out green. It always comes out like green and brown. Like it doesn't matter. You could put hot pink and fucking chartreuse and 70 colors in there, and it's gonna come out brown every freaking time. So that's why I started doing it, and then I started making my own swim baits. And actually, when I was fishing with you and I was catching them on chatterbaits, that's what the trailer was my swim baits that I made. Yeah. Like I haven't bought a single worm. The one thing I will say that's custom that you will not be able to buy, which I make, is I take a black blue fleck worm, I cut it right down the center line, and then I do June bug on the other side, laminate.
Oh, gotcha.
So you mix the two of the, best colors that, I don't say best colors, but two of the top 4 colors that everybody uses in the country.
Oh,
just merge them together. So we did have a question from actually my co-host on May Contain Fishing, and this is probably a loaded question because he's looking to upgrade his stuff, but it was what podcast equipment do you use? And you're probably the perfect guy to ask since you've got almost everything.
I mean, I'm reaching down here in my backpack because I have something I want to show you guys. No, that's the wrong bag. This is the right bag. So there are I'm old school. I use the laptop to connect to the internet, and that's pretty much it. Like, so I don't record anything. I don't use a service like that. We host our show. We use Anchor or now Spotify for podcasters.
Yeah.
And you have the ability to record your stuff right there and go ahead and use that. I'm old school. I like to record on actual digital audio equipment outside the fact. I don't even use USB mics. So I use a Rode. It's a Rodecaster Pro 2, which is pretty fancy. Like there's a lot of stuff that it does really, really well. I like it. It's got 4 mic inputs that I'm able to mix up and kind of have some fun with. It's got a whole lot more for other inputs, digital stuff. It's Bluetooth enabled. It's got all kinds of great features. But it doesn't do anything to the sound. Like it doesn't do anything. Like it's not necessary. The best piece of podcast equipment I've spent money on was a fraction of the cost. And I love this because it stays in one spot except for live shows. That's where I bring out. But this is, I think, and a lot of people use this too. I've seen Lojo uses it on his old podcast. I don't think he's doing that anymore. But this is by the company Zoom. I love the stuff that Zoom does, not just trick worms. They also make audio equipment, different Zoom, obviously. Different Zoom. But it really is this just shrunken down. And I still use this now because it will run off of 2 AA batteries. So
is that the thing we used in on that when we did the live recording at the boat ramp?
Yes.
Or is that a different one? Is it? That's cool.
That's exactly what
that thing is pretty neat.
And it's cool. Same thing. You can put 4 mics in and you can run 4 headphones out, right? Individual control of everything. You can store sound effects, intro music, all kinds of stuff. It even comes stock with some of this stuff that I like to use just the stock stuff that's on there and have fun with it and use it the best way I can. And then I, modify things as needed. It records to an SD card. So I've got the ability to just eject the SD card and then just real quick, I can import right from it directly on my laptop. So recording wise, that's what it is. Microphones, this is going to blow your mind. Last week, Zach from Dark Horse Tackle reached out to me and was like, bro, I'm sick of these live streams sounding like shit. They were working on a podcast as well because everybody's starting a podcast. Why the fuck
everybody's doing it.
Hey,
you get a podcast. You get a podcast. Hey,
the thing is he was like, what do I get for a mic? And that's such a loaded question because there's a handful of things you have to know. Are you just going to basically use this as an IO into your computer? So if you're doing a live stream like this, a USB mic is the most convenient, easiest thing to lug around and be able to change location and everything. It's super convenient. But if you need to be able to mix other people, if you're going to be doing something live, you want to have something where you've got multiple inputs. So then you need an actual IO. Well, with that, do you want to go USB inputs for that? Or do you want to go XLR inputs and have an actual audio inputs? So there's a lot of decisions you have to make. I asked him a bunch of these questions, and he sends me a picture of the stuff that he bought. He bought a really, really good, I think it's a Rode mic. It's not an NT1. I forget exactly what it is, but I'm pretty sure it's a Rode mic. It's either a Rode mic or a Shure. And he also bought a set of really, really nice headphones. I think that's the best investment you can make podcasting, is a good set of headphones that have a cable. Like, wireless stuff is cool, but there's so much delay that when you're putting this stuff together, you don't want to lose out on that. So headphones, I think, are the biggest thing. This microphone is like a $40 condenser mic. And I had been using, before I was using this, I had an MXL, just a cheap ribbon condenser that I had from other projects that I was not using. And I was like, I'm just going to use this. It doesn't even have to be a condenser mic. Like a lot of the remote stuff, when we recorded Binya at the ramp, I used dynamic mics for that. And they're about the same price. They're not even Shure SM58s. They're SM48s. They're like a step down. They're like $50 a pop. And I just happen to have them for live events, when I've got a bunch of speakers that need to talk or whatever for like a corporate event or something like that. And I've got to put a mic in people's hands. That's what I'm going to give them. I'm going to give them the cheap stuff. And it works just fine. The biggest thing with podcasting, editing. The editing package and the processing that you put into it, because podcasting is an audio first platform. So editing is important. You don't need to buy anything crazy. I do all the editing that I do on my show, which is extensive. Like if you listen to the last show that we did with the story time with Binya, I put together this entire thing on a program that's free. It's called Audacity.
The audacity of that bitch.
It's free. And it's awesome. It works great. You can import audio from a bunch of different sources. Like, it is awesome. So, I recommend, I like having something that's like physical that will record the stuff. But that Zoom, what is it? I think it's called the PodTrack 4. Let me double check. Yeah, it's called the PodTrack P4. And I think it's one of the best things on the market for the money. I think it's like about $200. When I bought it, it was about $200. It may have even gone down now because some of this other stuff is crazy, but you don't need to spend a ton of money. I think it's crazy.
Right.
There is a YouTube channel that I follow called, I think it's called Cold Cracker Outdoors. And it's actually a, what the hell do you call it? Like bushcrafting type stuff, like survival. It's interesting stuff. And he's in Pennsylvania, and he was doing a YouTube video announcing that he's got a new podcast. And the video is him like opening up all these boxes from like whatever company he ordered all these things from. And it's all these nice Shure mics with the fancy stands and everything else. And it's like, man, all that stuff is just not needed to do a quality podcast. It really isn't. You don't need all that shit. And I think people get too stuck on that. Like, they're like, oh, well, I have to get all this. It's like, no, you definitely don't need to.
I think a lot of it comes down to, I will tell you, this headset is the best audio quality I've had in any of my live streams, but it's also a Discord certified gaming headset. It's not designed for podcasting, but it is designed for like Zoom meetings and crap. And it's 7.1 Dolby. So when I listen back, I can hear it. Because I have a loop back on this, so it helps me to know that my audio is not screwed up.
Well, and you need that. Like, a lot of people are just like, oh, I don't want to hear myself. And trust me, you want to hear yourself.
You get used to it.
You get used to it. Yeah. And you're just like, oh, okay. It's like that at trivia. Sometimes I'm like, something sounds weird. And I step out in front of the mic or out in front of the speaker with the mic, like blocking it so I'm not getting any feedback. And I'm talking. I'm like, no, everything sounds pretty good. You would be amazed how fast you adjust to hearing your own voice, and it kind of becomes natural,
Did you listen to that podcast I sent you, PJ? Yes. So I was joking around and I was like, so I'm gonna have Bobby on, and I was like, you should listen to this podcast. It was funny. So I was like, you actually, I recommend this one because the guest was really good, and it was me. And then I was like, actually, this one too, the guest is really good too, because it was when we did the freaking camping trip where we were actually using that setup. But dude, that was nuts. That freaking camp out.
That was crazy
What's that?
too, because remember you were able to hear like the crickets in the background and stuff like that with those
Yeah.
shitty mics. Like,
Yeah,
no,
dude, it was nuts.
I just run them.
You actually listen, you could hear that car pull up, which is funny
Yeah.
because I didn't pick up on that, but I was listening to it on headphones at work, and I heard that car. So I don't, you haven't probably listened to that one yet, PJ. But so, dude, I went down to hang out with Bobby, and I really wanted to do like he does a lot of like car camping stuff like that. And
Nice.
so I was like, hey, dude, we should do an overnight fish somewhere.
vandalism, you know.
Yeah, just whatever comes up. Defiling, outsides of porta potties and things
Birch
like that.
trees.
But
Yes,
birch
exactly.
trees. So, dude, we're sitting there recording a podcast, right? We had just eaten. We're sitting under a pop up, just chilling, and a car pulls up, and it's like, I don't know, it was late. It was like 10:30. It was fairly late.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, it was
we
real
heard
late.
like these dudes, like, so Bobby's kayak was at the ramp. He didn't even pull his kayak. He just left it down there. So we
Lazy
heard people pull up to the
bitch.
ramp. And we're like, what the fuck is going on? So like we're mid podcast and Bobby's like, I want to go check on my kayak. Because he was like kind of getting worried. Dude, there was these two kids that bought a fucking pedal those pedal boats.
Yes.
On fucking Craigslist. They were bought this thing on Craigslist, dude, and they were fucking doing a donut in the ramp area because he could sit on one side of it, but it was a 2-seater and it was one of those like really old school ones with like the styrofoam pontoons.
Yeah,
Yep.
it was
Yep.
all
So
styrofoam
he
on
couldn't
the bottom,
turn
yeah.
it because he had too much weight on one side. So
And he
he's
thought
just
it was broken.
thing in a circle.
Yeah. Freaking idiots. Idiots.
Of course, we're fucked up sitting there like looking at this guy pedaling in a circle, and he goes, "Hey, what's going on?" He's like, "I just bought this. I think I'm gonna return it. It doesn't work right." And I'm just like, "What the fuck?"
I think it was the
I know.
next
I'd heard.
morning. We were
Yeah.
talking about it right before we launched the next morning, and I'm like, now that I think about it, I think the only reason why that dude's boat wasn't working was he didn't have two people in it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, oh, could you imagine if in that neighborhood where we were too, like Western Mass,
Fucking beautiful.
but that neighborhood where we were, could you imagine if both those dudes took off in that boat together? It's just a little paddle together, and someone came and
Oh my
stole their
God.
fucking truck.
Yep.
That's some real shit. That could easily happen there. I wouldn't be surprised at all.
Dude,
Oh,
it's
God.
that's honestly the main reason why I wanted to go down and hang out with Bobby because there's
To steal
I don't
someone's
think there's very rarely that you do one of those things that something like that doesn't fucking happen.
Yeah.
Like every time.
Oh God. My favorite was one night I was truck camping with Becca. And Becca, the thing is with Becca is like, I'm old enough to be Becca's father. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And like, she's amazing, absolutely amazing. So we go and we're truck camping and we're in Cape Cod, right? Right up, like right against the ocean. There's this, like one of those rail trails that's set up. So there's this big bike trail that just goes right by. And that's right on, like, if you look to the left-hand side, it's just a rocky drop off right there to the ocean. And when it's low tide, the water just drops up. Anyway, on the other side, there's a parking lot where people can park their vehicles and then put their bikes on this bike path or whatever and go and do their thing. And it's a great spot. So we're set up camping there, having a great time. And we had just finished up with dinner. I think we had a couple of drinks and we're like, all right, cool, time for bed. And usually what we do is we go to sleep pretty early, like usually like 9:30, 10 o'clock maybe. And it was probably about 10:30 or so, like about the same time of night as when I was you. There were these 2 cars or 3 cars that came in with a bunch of teenagers, and they're like blowing donuts in the parking lot and shit. And this was like high winds, rainy. It was terrible camping weather, but it made for a great video. Becca loved it. And Becca's texting me and she's like, oh my God, the old lady in me just wants to yell at these kids so badly. And I was like, go for it. She did. She was hanging out. There's like on the YouTube video she's like hanging out the window. She's like, get the fuck out of here. Like, she didn't swear in her content, but oh my God, I was dying. And she was getting fired up. I'm like, oh, all right. Okay. Well, I figured I was going to be the old man, like get off my lawn, but no. Leave it to 20-something-year-old Becca. My God.
Yep. Dude, that's funny. She's got to have like that, and you probably know more because you're friends with her and probably hear the stories, but I'm sure there's a lot of stuff that she doesn't even put on her show. Like you got to realize, dude, she literally travels the country. Like she just go, like she'll be like tomorrow we're going to Kansas to catch crappie. Like, just fucking random. Like, she obviously has a plan and a strategy,
Yeah.
but like when
yeah.
you watch her channel, she's just like, one episode she's in Canada, and then the next episode she's in Florida, and you're like, why? Like, she just that's what she does. That's her whole channel premise, is just
What's her
traveling
channel?
around fishing and camping.
Fishing
What's
with
her
Becca.
channel's name?
Fishing with Becca.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Did you see her new rig? Have you
Dude,
seen
that's
this thing?
Cool. That's cool.
It's insane, isn't it? It is
That's
insane.
neat. I'm actually going to be at that Mohegan show. I might go check it out when I'm down there because it looks really cool.
Oh yeah, yeah. She's going to be doing a bunch of different stuff. I told her this year, I was like, I'm going to get you a pass for the Springfield show if you want to come and hang out again, and maybe it won't be like 6 degrees and I won't bitch out on camping. But
dude, I might be camping too because I was talking to Chris.
Yep.
And I might just come down for the weekend because I think he's going to get me a vendor pass too, so I can come down and help him sell stuff. Because I don't know if he told you, but I actually helped him out. I made him a loop for all of his baits.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So I made a bunch of underwater footage and stuff. So
yeah, that's
I wanted to go down. It was, dude. That was an epic, dude. That was some redneck engineering at its finest.
That's what fishing is, man. Is redneckery on like the like doctorate level, you know.
It was literally, I think I have it. Oh, dude, I do have it right here. Check this shit out. Ready?
Oh, nice. Nice.
And that's a trailer ball.
Yeah.
The 2-inch ball on a paint arm.
Oh, dude.
And it's got the camera on it so I can change the angle of it.
Yeah.
So I set this out in the water in front of me. And then I cast directly over top of it and work the bait back to it.
Yeah. Oh,
and it lets me record underwater footage, dude. So this like stabilizes it, keeps it on the bottom so it stays straight. Because I learned that this floats.
Yeah, exactly.
So in case you ever wanted to know, a paint roller floats.
That's good.
So I couldn't put the camera on it because it kept trying to get away from me.
Oh man, I love it, dude. That's
yeah,
awesome.
Dude. I was just, and dude, I did this in October. In short, standing up to my knees in the water.
Were you
his dad and his kid came to kayak. Lake.
Oh, you were at a pond? Oh god.
So it's a small lake near my house, and it's really clean water.
Yep.
And dude, he was loving it. I sent him pictures, and he's like, "Dude, you really duct taped the hammer." I'm like, "Dude, it worked. It was awesome." Dude, but yeah, he so I literally was standing up to my knees, tying on these fucking 8-inch glide baits, casting them 15 feet because I don't want to cast them too far because I didn't need to work them that far. I just need to get them in the camera.
Yeah.
And like literally this dad and his daughter show up in these sit-in kayaks that I think they just bought, like Sun Dolphins or something.
Yeah.
And they're watching me, and because the water was finally cleared up because we had all that flooding. So there was so much shit in the water.
Right.
So I'm standing there in mid-October in like a 50-degree day up to my knees casting this fucking bait, and then like walking up to, he didn't know because he can't see the camera. So I sees me cast a bait and like trying to work it to a specific spot, go cut it off, walk up, and he's just watching me. He must have thought I was like some meth head trying to catch like one fish or something.
You know what's funny? I've seen there's a guy up the Shears who has a company, Tom's Custom Baits, and I was fishing at this one lake up the Shears that I love, and I was coming back into the ramp just on my way back, and I thought this dude was fishing, and he was just casting, retrieving. So there's the same spot. Like he wasn't even concerned with what was going on. He was just watching the bait. Come to find out, he was tuning swim baits.
Yep.
Like, so I'm like, okay, I guess that makes sense. You know, you're doing whatever. It's just, it's wild to me. I'll bet you this guy thought you were like on like some fish, like dialed in. Like, oh, wow.
Yeah. And the thing is, every like 5 casts, I'd run back to shore and cut that off and tie it. And I'm pulling out baits that are like, we're not talking Senkos. We're talking 6-8-inch
like
rainbow trout painted glides and swim
shit. Yeah.
Shit. Like freaking huge baits compared to like, you know, most people around here aren't using a lot of that stuff. And it was just, but it was really fun to do. Like it was funny because Chris was like very appreciative. And I was like, dude, this is like, I geeked out on building that and doing that whole thing. That was fun for me, you know, like it was an enjoyable experience.
No, that's great, dude. Good for you. That's awesome, man. And that's the thing. Like I think Chris and Christina are some of the best people
Absolutely.
that I've had the good fortune to meet, man. They're like, they've come down and like, you know, been going through town. They'll stop and play trivia. Like they're absolutely amazing. They're all unbelievable. I can't wait. This year I am going up to the St. Lawrence River and I'm going to do some fishing. Let's 100% go and do that. It'll be a real good time.
Dude, we should time that, because my plan was to go up anyways, because what I wanted to do, and it'd actually be kind of cool. It'd be a good little segment for Jigs and Biggs too. Is I wanted to have Chris like teach me the basics of painting on camera, and do it as like a little advert for his company as well. But like do like a video of like, just teach me how to do a simple pattern. Like I'm not going to be able to do it the intricate scales and crap that he does. I don't think I'd ever figure that out. But show me how to make like a green pumpkin crankbait or something like simple, you know?
So I think that this bait has already been delivered to the user. I'm not sure. I may text Sean and double check, but there was a winner of one of our giveaways for I think it was one of the multi-species raffles. Because if you don't place the money, you're eligible to win prizes. We raffle off from a bunch of different.
Yeah, I've got a rod sleeve around here because I was one of those.
Yeah, Seraphis, sacks, and sleeves. That's right. Yep. So you get like, you know, there's an opportunity to win some really cool stuff. Well, I forget exactly what it was, but it was an eBay lure, and this individual is a heavy smoker, cigarette smoker, and Chris made a jerkbait that looks like a burning Marlboro Red. Like, dude, that's awesome. It is so lifelike. Like, I think that's it's like awesome. A 110 size, like it's a good standard size. And it's just like, it is so, and I'm assuming that this person has already gotten it. I'm going to text Sean and double check and everything, but it's pretty good. Yeah. I always like, I saw a picture of it. I was like, you gotta be kidding me. Like they're the greatest folks, you know, we should plan it. And if we can,
that'd be awesome.
Let's try and plan it around the smallie spawn.
That was my thought, dude, is I want to go up there around then. Cause dude, that's also weird up there too, because they don't open.
Weird.
They don't open bass. Like you can't target bass, you can't look at a bass, you can't touch a bass before a certain timeline. Like if you catch a bass by accident, you're in trouble before a certain date.
It's like catching a sturgeon in Massachusetts.
Yeah, same thing. Yep.
No pictures. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, here it's the same way. If you catch a sturgeon on Champlain, you're required by law to just cut your line. You're not allowed to boat it. You're not allowed to unhook it. You're not allowed to handle it. They just assume that it's just going to figure out the hook on its own. You're not allowed to even touch it.
Really?
Yeah, it's crazy. It's funny too, because they're like that with walleye here too. Like they're not. You got a limit of one, and they do an extreme slot limit in a lot of places. So like one of the places, that place I wanted to go camping with you, 17-inch. That's it. Can't catch a 16. Can't catch an 18. It's 1 17-inch.
No shit.
And anything other than that, you can't keep. You have to catch and release it.
Do you guys have a lot of walleye where you are? I mean, in specifically in Vermont, but PJ, where are you? Do you have a lot of walleye?
I'm in Indiana. Yes, we do have
walleye, dude.
We got walleye.
Walleye.
Yeah. I'm hoping Christmas Eve we're going to get into them. That's the plan.
That's freaking awesome, man.
Yeah.
I have yet to catch one. I've fished only in a couple of waters where there's a lake in Connecticut that I had fished for. It was Camp Hooks that weekend. They stocked walleye like in like the 80s or something like that. And there's still a small population that's still like doing well. So they're in there. You can catch them in the Connecticut River, but only in specific spots. I just haven't ever crossed any paths with them, but that's wild. Yeah,
that's a river I've never fished, and I should have, because it literally makes the border of my state. But I've never fished in Connecticut.
There are some amazing fish in that river. Like I kind of hate fishing it in a kayak. I really do. You know,
the thing is, this year I planned on doing it, but then we got all that flooding, and it was always like I never knew what the conditions were going to be, and I didn't. For me, that's like a 2.5 hour drive to get to somewhere that's viable. And then to fish, to get over there and then find out that the ramp is underwater and it's washed out. I don't really want to do that. I want to kind of do it with my rowboat. I don't know if I'd want to do it with a kayak, but I have a nine horse motor on a 14-foot aluminum rowboat, which would be kind of perfect, because then I got a electric trolling motor, like a little Minn Kota Endura. So I could easily navigate that with the rowboat a lot easier than my kayak.
Yep. Are you still have that tracker?
Yep. So I actually, dude, remember how I told you that I was gonna sell it because it was broken?
Yeah.
It wasn't
And
fucking
you
broken.
found out that it was. Yeah,
it was
just
fine.
some small part.
So
That's
what it
crazy.
was, what I learned, and I talked to a bunch of guys that own that same motor. Apparently, the bushings get dry, and
That's
when the
what it was.
bushings get dry, they make like a cricket sound when they get hot and dry. So what the guys literally talk about doing is there's like literally a aerosolized lithium grease that people use for lubricating certain things, and the lithium grease doesn't react to water apparently, or it's just better for using in motors. And you spray up inside the motor when it starts doing it, and it lubricates the bushings. And they're like, this hole right here, angle it up at a 45-degree angle and just spray this grease up in there, and it apparently it just lubricates everything inside of the casing. And I'm sure it probably leaves a little bit of slime in the water, but it's an outboard. It kind of is already doing
everything.
that.
Yeah, exactly.
It's already doing that.
Comes with the territory. I think I'm telling you, man, I think that you get onto the water with your tracker onto the river. I think you're golden, man. You know, it's just
I'm putting spot lock on this year. That's going to be the thing.
Yeah.
Right now I have a shitty motor guide that's like old school. It's cable style steering. Yep. So if I let go of the pedal to steer, it
goes wherever. Yeah, wherever that can be dangerous, man. Yeah, that's crazy.
So you should actually come up. That should be one of the trips we should do this year. You should come up and come out on Champlain, dude.
Fuck it, let's do it, man.
We could record a fucking podcast right out on Champlain, right in the boat.
Hell yeah. I've been looking. I had a conversation with Joe about boats, and I told him, I was like, if I was going to do something, I'm like, I probably am not going to buy a bass boat, just because I'm not driven to, fish for tournaments, So it's like a lot of that doesn't necessarily, fit for me. Something with a little bit deeper of a hull would be good, so that I can, go and fish, big water and just experiment a bit, have more seating so I can record content while I'm there with guests as I'm fishing. That's my dream right there. Drop shotting 80 feet of water with somebody going like, yeah, so what's your favorite chicken joint, huh?
Dude, I want to say it was Lowe or Lund. They make this boat, and it's the perfect hybrid. So it's a deep V style aluminum boat, but it has short gunnels.
Yeah.
So it's not like some of those boats like Starcraft, Crestliner, the gunnel is up to like your hip.
Yeah, exactly.
So for bass fishing, it kind of sucks because you have to net every fish.
Yeah.
You can't reach over and grab them.
But I'm a kayak angler. I net every fish anyway.
That's true,
for me, I'm like, it's like, I can either reach in and grab this fish and maybe risk, losing it, or I can grab a net and have it be a sure thing.
Yep.
Hand me the net, bitch.
And I'm not going to lie, dude. I net almost everything anyways.
Me too.
Because I'm afraid of hooks. I've took enough treble hooks to the thumb.
I was just
not want to do it.
So did you, Dave Urke, the Wolf of Walmart, right?
Yep.
He's been on a bunch of podcasts recently. He was just on Jigs and Biggs, and he's actually the pro staff lead, in charge with Dark Horse Tackle. It's a new role for him. Well, he's such a great dude. And he's getting into kayak fishing, and I think it was like his second or third send. There was a hook involved, and he was just like, "Oh my god!" And of course, everybody is reaching out and they're sending pictures of like, "Oh, well, this is when this happened to me," or "Watch this video here. You should learn how to do the braid trick." So he's got all this like PTSD that's happening, like having to like relive hook sets like into flesh. And then I think I shared a meme where somebody was trying to rip a hook out of somebody's finger with pliers. That's gangster, right? They rip it out. I think it was a small jerkbait and like a small Rapala, and it goes and it's dangling up. Then the other hook gets caught in another finger.
Yep, dude. So, I had a fish hook me one time doing that. So I had a fish. I was lipping him.
Yep.
And I was trying to get the hook out of him, and he jumped. And the bottom treble hook on a square bill went through the side of my thumb and like came right out the other side. And for that reason, I carry barb cutters with me now
Oh
I
yeah.
carried diagonal cutters in my kayak because I didn't have any with me. Dude,
So you
that's
see
brutal.
that really nice looking
Yep.
perch crankbait right there? This was
Mhm.
made by Derek, good friend of the show, Wrangling Baits.
Okay.
That I had just in that picture, I had just tied it on, and I went out fishing with Delirious Angler. Delirious and I were in his boat, and we were fishing. Must have been just like 2 or 3 months after I caught my PB. That 6-pounder from this one reservoir. So we're out here trying to get on some fish, and I'm throwing around a lipless, and I'm just like stroking the thing, like let it hit the bottom, rip it up. A good size yellow perch grabs hold of this, and then as I'm trying to take the hook out of the perch, it slips out from between my fingers, and I caught the front hook in my thumb.
That's the same thing I did, dude. Yep.
So
I had to drive all the way to my dad's house from a local ramp. So I had to drive about 30 minutes to my dad's house to get diagonal cutters to get it out. And that's a funny thing about being a fisherman is like, if I had diagonal cutters, I would have just cut the barb off and pulled it out and kept fishing. I would have just kept doing it. But
so I told, like, the way it was angled, like I couldn't put it out. It would have to come through my nail. And I'm like,
yep,
I'm
what
gonna
happened to
pass
me.
out. That's not gonna. It's not coming out that
It
way.
hurt. That's a bad spot. It
It's a
hurts
shit
really
spot.
bad right there.
What's really bad is that yellow perch was hanging off the back hook.
Yep.
So I'm standing there, it's flapping around. I was like, all right, I grab my pliers, I shake that fish off, right? I take the split ring off the hook that's in me, I put the bait off to the side, and I'm like, so Delirious and I, now Delirious is like, he's a retired semi-pro football player. He's a big dude. I am a big dude. I'm a 300-pound guy. I'm sitting on the back of his boat. Of course, we do what you do and you watch a YouTube video to make sure you're doing the braid trick right. So I'm holding my thumb like this and we wrap the braid around and he's like, okay, cool, man, I'm going to do it. Now, as he went, he pulled and he put all his weight in there. I moved.
Oh,
The hook
yeah,
didn't move.
then.
I moved. And I was like, okay, we need some professional help. I ended up at the hospital. My sister is a PA and I called her and I was like, look, I go, do you have the shit at your house to be able to like help me with this? And she's like, I don't. She's like, because you're going to need a lot of lidocaine. Like it's going to be bad. So she's like, you're going to have to go to the ER. This is who you want to talk to. So I went in, they saw me and the look on the students that they had in there as this guy and the guy who took it out of my thumb broke a sweat trying to do so. Like they must have given me like a dozen shots of lidocaine. Like I couldn't feel anything from like just past my wrist down. And he was like grimacing and they were just like, oh. And I knew better than to look. I just kept looking at them and I was like, yeah, it's pretty bad, isn't it? It feels, I can't feel a damn thing, but it's pretty bad. Don't you think? Yeah, it was rough.
Dude, I actually got one, the worst one I got. So I had pretty much the same story. And I got two in a month and a half. Literally one I got out myself. The second one, I don't even know why. I had a rod in my hand with a square bill attached to the little hook keeper. Right? I was putting my shoes on and I put it next to me on the bed and sat down on my bed and my fat roll wrapped around that square bill. And that treble hook went in and back out around the fat roll.
Oh, really?
So it actually went. So I actually buried a treble hook all the way up to like the line tie. So it was like in and then through and then back out. So it was like a full U all the way up to the line tie. And I hollered to my wife and I cut the braid off. I'm sitting there with like freaking split ring pliers trying to undo the fucking square bill. Got the square bill off. So then I just have a treble hook hanging and it went through my shirt. So it actually pinned my shirt to my freaking skin. So we had to cut. So my wife cut the shirt around the hook so I could take my shirt off. And then I was like, okay, cut the barb and then pull it. And she started to pull it. And as soon as she didn't even start to pull it, she just touched it with pliers.
Oh yeah.
And like, I instantly was like, no, we need to. I'm like, this. I feel that through my whole side. I'm like, you're in something that's important. So then we went to the hospital, and of course I walk in and I've got like a shirt on, and I look normal except for the fact that I'm like wincing a little bit every once in a while. And they're like, the doctor's like, "Where's the hook?" And I'm like, "Right here." And they're like, "In your fat roll?" And I'm like, "Yeah, thanks for the fat joke, but yeah, that's where it is." They're like, "How did you do that?" And I'm like, "I sat down." Yeah.
That's
So I penetrated myself with a square. And the worst part is, and that's the funniest thing about it, is I penetrated myself in my bed, and I did not mean to.
Oh God. I
But
will
dude,
tell
it
you,
was awful.
I almost put a drop hook into 2 different fingers today on 2 different instances.
Really?
Trying to, I went to this river I haven't fished ever, and it's just something I've written off for the longest time. And I always thought it was really difficult to find some of these spots. Well, I went to this one street where there's a dam, right? Where it's a nice, big, wide, deep area. And I'm like, if I'm going to find fish, we'll see if we can find fish here. I wish I would have done this forever ago. There are actually arrows drawn on trees directing you where the path is so that you don't break yourself
awesome.
trying to go down the rocks. I was like, this is amazing. There was a guy who owns a house across the street that was like, "Oh, you gonna do some fishing?" And I was like, "Oh, this ought to be good." And he was so helpful. He was like, "Oh, I'll be right back. I got a map in my garage I can show you." And I'm like, "Holy shit, this is great." Just trying to traverse down to these spots. It's so steep, but at least it's almost like there at one point or another, there was some kind of like a paved path that went down to, there's some kind of a drain or something or control that's attached to the pump house that's over by the dam. It's like there's a fish elevator there and stuff. Like it's a significant, for such a small little river, I would call it a creek. Like for such a small piece of water, there's a lot going on over there. So I'm making my way down, and like I'm kind of like just trying to balance. It's one of these things that's difficult to traverse going down, but coming up, it's infinitely easier. It's just infinitely easier.
Yep.
So I'm going down, and I have this drop shot hook, this little owner mosquito hook, and like twice I almost just rammed it into a finger. One time,
I think that's why treble hooks end up in people more often than like EWGs, because there's such a fine point that all you got to do is set them. Like, you ever picked up a drop shot hook and just had it hang there? Like, you just touch them and they're in your skin, and they're in you.
Yep, absolutely.
It's crazy.
Yeah,
that adventure you're going on sounds like a lot of the stuff that PJ does, because he's more into he does the kayak tournament stuff and fishing too, but he does a lot of like fly fishing and wading. And I do bank fishing. I'm like Sean. Like, if I'm bank fishing, it's because I'm taking my kids or I'm going with someone. Like, I don't do a ton of bank fishing. I used to when I was a kid, but I pretty much stick to the boat or the kayak. And I've actually had not really an argument, but an adamant stance that I refuse to get into fly fishing because I can't afford another hobby. That's another expensive hobby that I just can't. I mean, obviously, I'm sitting in front of a pegboard wall in my living room of plastic baits for bass.
Yeah.
You throw fly fishing at me, and I can't do anything like halfway. I jump full in, and like
if I spin the camera around you guys, I'm sitting in my garage, and I got 2 kayaks and a paddleboard sitting here, 5 fly rods sitting right there, and an enormous amount of other rods right there. So the hobbies just keep growing with me. There's no stopping. There's no shortage.
You know what? If I were you, Benny, you know what I would do? I would look into BFS.
That's interesting. I've thought about it.
Yeah, I would put a BFS combo together and go do a creek wade. Or even without doing that, just grab your spinning combo, just real light, put with what you have, some really, really light stuff, and go do a creek. Like, wait until it's 100 degrees, and go in a creek that's like 55, and it'll be refreshing. And I've been looking to do that more and more and more. I've just been addicted to the kayak. I've put the kayak in bodies of water this year. Never thought. And my kayak, you've seen my kayak. It's a bass boat for one. It's huge. But some of the bodies of water I put this thing in, even no matter how small, it's worth it. Yep.
No, I really want a Titan X. I actually had this mental debate about, I need spot lock on my bass boat. I need it because I've actually had situations where I've caught a fish and almost wrecked my boat because the currents, like aluminum bass boat in the wind, if you're not paying attention, you're going to shore. And I'm fighting a largemouth, and then I look up and I'm like, oh shit. Like my trolling motor's dragging in the mud because I'm in so shallow that I've got to like hold it in the water and do that weird choppy thing to get my boat to turn. And I'm like, I need to be able to step on a button and have my boat stay while I fight that fish. Or like, it's frustrating when it's really windy. Like Champlain, I didn't fish Champlain at all this year, mostly because of the debris from the flooding, but also because when the wind, even a little bit, Champlain never really has a calm day. It's usually got some current, and you can't fish cover because you don't stay still long enough to do it. So you have to be like this weird magician where you're turning your boat, pushing the pedal, stopping, pushing the pedal, casting, reeling, turning the boat. It's like, it's aggravating. So I need to be able to just go beep and then, okay, now I can cast and focus on fishing.
And you know,
but I want a Titan X for actually it's your fault.
Yeah.
Because I took my Old Town down and fished with Bobby. I've got a picture. I'll show it to you, PJ. You should see it. My boat looks like a fucking children's toy next to Bobby's boat. Like my Old Town looks like a freaking it looks like something Bobby would tow.
You got a significant kayak. Like that Old Town that's a great boat. Like I think Old Town makes a fantastic boat. You know.
It's awesome. But
the thing is like it all gets down to like, and everybody's different. Like I find that my boat is huge. I don't bring a ton of shit. I have one box that holds what I think like 5,700 boxes, and there's 5 rod holders on there, but I don't always fill them, you know. But that may be changing. I'm going to be adding a few things into the mix this year.
So that's this year. What I'm doing. So what I did this year is going to be 2024. It's going to be an interesting year for me because I'm going to have the boat for the whole year now because I thought the boat was down until August. So I didn't use it for most of the spring. Transferring shit. I understand what Joe was talking about when he had a kayak. Like when you have a boat and a kayak, it's kind of a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
Because unless you're willing to buy 2 of everything, you have to like literally transfer shit from the kayak to the boat. So what I did is I bought a big Cast King bag. You were talking about it in your last podcast, like one that's supposed to hold 3,700 sorter boxes. I bought that, and I bought a bunch of bait binders. And then what I do is I have like one bait binder is like my essentials, right? And then another one is like just like stuff that if I'm doing something technique specific, like flipping or pitching and stuff like that. And then the nice thing about that is I just literally take the handle from that, the strap, and I loop it through my seat. So then I just unclip it and I take that whole bag into my bass boat.
So
I don't have to readjust that. But the hard baits, I got really, really bad about like, dude, I started out the season and I had a lipless box and I had a square bill and deep diver box. I had it all organized. I got 2 weeks in the season, and then I had a box with the fucking barrel full of monkeys worth of square bills in it. And I've got to pare it down, and I'm kind of doing the Sean the Fisherman school of I'm going to really do a good job in 2024 of documenting which of these baits work and which of these baits I can leave at home and start paring it down so that I know I only need these 6 square bills and these 5 lipless and these 4 jerk baits. Because the storage thing, but the thing about the reason why I want to upgrade, it's nothing against Old Town. To be honest, I beat the shit out of that Old Town.
Oh yeah.
Like I've fished 16 hours a weekend, every weekend, all summer long since I bought it. Hundreds of hours in this thing. And the only thing I've ever had happen was I broke the fucking prop when I was with Bobby. Dude, I was fishing with Bobby. It's funny. I never told you this story either, PJ. So literally, we launch, dude. Didn't even start fishing yet. Launch. I'm pedaling, and I fucking didn't lock my drive in, and my drive popped up, and I just pushed it back down. I started pedaling, and I'm like, man, this drive feels weird. And I pull it up, and I had 1 blade of a 2-blade prop.
That could be
so I spent the whole day fishing with Bobby with 1 blade. So testament to Old Town's pedal drive, dude. I fished the whole day with one
You
blade.
did fine. Yeah.
It was fine. It was sucked a little bit. I had to pedal a little harder, but other than that, it was fine. And the only other thing I broke was the rudder control, and that's because I was stupid. And I was trying to raise the rudder, and I didn't realize it was stuck on something, and I snapped. The way they do their rudder is really weird. It's actually similar like what you were talking about with yours in the show, Bobby, where like underneath the handle, there's like a weird zigzaggy plate that's mounted up underneath that the cables go through. And the only way to get to it is like from this weird hole that you have to like go at like, I swear to God, they put this thing in before they finish roto molding it.
Yeah.
Because I don't know how the hell they get to it. And then, so literally it's broken. I can't lift and raise my rudder. But what I did is I popped the cover off and I just pull the rope. Because the handle doesn't work, but the rope system's still all intact.
It's all intact. Yeah, exactly. So you just yank
I literally just take it, and I actually have one of those carabiners with the like cinch in it.
Yep.
And I just pull it up, tighten it, and clip it to my seat. So it pulls down on that rudder to keep it down.
There you go.
And that's basically how I keep it down. And then when I want to lift it up, the only thing is I have to push it with my paddle to deploy it.
Yep.
But that kayak has hundreds of hours, miles and I mean, I was going to Massachusetts every month with that thing.
Yeah.
I just want a bigger kayak because I want to put a motor on I want to get a motor for tournaments. And I don't want like an XI3. I want just like a Torpedo or a Bigsby or just something on the back that I can just like fly up to my spot and then fish. But I still want a pedal drive because I want to be able to. I want to get there, shut the motor off, fish, pedal around, motor to the next spot, fish. So that way, when I'm done at the end of the day, I can ride home.
That to me is
the Native's more conducive for that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Even the one I have is set up more. It's got a good location for all of those accessories. But yeah, I would, dude. If I were you, I'd look at that Native 12X.
That's what I want. That's what I'm looking at, dude. It's got all the ports and everything for all the wiring, like the little plates that you just drill through, and then you just put your wiring there. It's going to be so clean. Like the swivel seat, I could get myself in trouble with.
I got a swivel seat on my old Ascend 128T.
Oh, really?
It didn't swivel like as freely as the one I think that Native puts together. Native makes a nice seat. Big Adventure makes a really good seat. That's one of the big things about Native and Bonafide. Like the seats are really, really great. The swivel on that one, the seat rides up a little bit higher. The swivel on my 128T was, seat's so much lower.
Right.
It was low enough to where like I couldn't stand up in this kayak like on my own. Like I would need to have a rope at the bow or something to like push up against. But in my Titan, I just stand up. Like I don't even think about it. Like, I'm sitting.
Dude, I've never
right angles.
I've never really stood up in my kayak because I need a bigger kayak. The 10-foot is nerve wracking. Like it's stable. I still feel like I'm gonna end up in the water.
The thing is, and I had this conversation. It was with Dave. I was like, if your seat is set so that you can be high enough, but still like you're not, top heavy. If your seat and in your kayak, you're in the right hull for what you want to do. If your seat is high enough, you almost never have to stand up.
No,
you know what I mean? Like if I'm fishing like a frog or something. Although, I mean, like even, a lot of those top waters, like poppers and even jerkbaits, I just fish them on shorter rods. And I sit the whole time and I have no issue, Yeah,
I do the same thing. I actually learned how to I used to have this 13 rod, and it was actually, I want to buy another one. I broke it, but it's a medium heavy, but it's a 6.7.
Yeah.
And it's got I caught the pike that's in my intro video. I caught like a 40-inch pike on that rod.
Oh yeah, that's awesome.
It bent right all the way to the fucking blank. Like it was, but it fought that fish all the way in, and it was perfect for like skipping because with a kayak, you have a 7-foot rod or bigger. You start getting into 8-foot rods and you're slapping the water when you're trying to like skip because there's no good angle.
Yeah.
The funny part is I have a hard time because I'm so used to fishing from the kayak. I actually have a hard time skipping from the boat because I'm used to being able to sidearm.
Right down, and when you're up
And with the boat, when I'm sidearming, it's just bloop because it's like not the right angle. I need to go down and underhand it. So like I actually have a hard time in my boat casting now because I'm so used to the kayak. And it's crazy. But the main reason why I want to tighten is for the more storage. That rotating seat would be nice, and the fact that I could have the bigger, wider platform for being able to try to stand up. But
it's nice. It is nice.
It's the spot lock trolling motor, and I decided I'm going to go with a 24 volt, which is overkill for my bass boat. But when I get on Champlain, a lot of times you can get 2-3 foot rollers, and having an 80-pound thrust motor is going to make the difference of whether I could stay out fishing or have to go home.
Yeah, true.
Because that's the one thing I love having an aluminum, because I've had my boat in such shallow water that my transducer wasn't hitting the water anymore.
Oh yeah,
I've been in 6 inches of water with my bass boat. Like I went up a creek because I thought literally up a creek, like the saying, but like literally I went to the edge of this freaking lake and there was this inlet and I was like, oh man, then I could see grass and pads and oh man, it looked beautiful. And in my kayak, I would have been all up in there fishing. I didn't have this mentality of, oh, you're in a boat, idiot. So I literally go through this channel, and at the opening of the channel, there's a sign that says 5-mile-an-hour speed limit. So I'm like, oh, they must be able to get boats through here. Because clearly you're not going 5 miles an hour with a kayak. So cool. Dude, I got into the mouth, got my whole boat into the mouth, and then all of a sudden I looked and there's like no water. So I had to do a complete 90, I had to do a complete turn with my bass boat that was just wide enough for this opening. And I looked down at my fish finder. My fish finder was just blinking for the depth because the fucking transducer wasn't even in the water.
Out of the water? Jesus.
That's how little water was in there. And all I had to do was I did the literally hold my trolling motor out of the water and did the and I turned it and drove out. My wife's like, what the hell just happened? I'm like, oh, it's no big deal.
No, it's fine, babe. It's fine. It's fine.
I just beached us. No big deal. But it's an aluminum boat, so that's the kind of shit I like to do. I like to be able to go into places like that. You can't do it with a fiberglass. I would have been stuck there.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely, dude. Fiberglass, you'll be there. There are, and that's the thing. Aluminum is really, really light. And you're right. It can be a bitch with the wind and everything. I get that, but also you can kind of abuse it a little bit.
While I'm loading it, dude. So loading it by yourself. I had a guy watch me one day. So I have a whole system. I hand load it. I don't drive it on. I never understood why guys do that. And dude, I've got it down, dude. I know where I need to back my trailer in to a certain point, and I know, okay, this much water over my wheel wells, that's where I stop, jump out, hook this thing to my boat, push my boat off the dock, walk in the water, pull it up, crank it on, and I'm out. And they had a guy walk up to me and he goes, dude, I don't know how you guys do that when you're by yourself. And I'm like, it's an aluminum. I can literally walk out there and drag this thing onto my trailer if I have to.
Of course.
Fiberglass, you're not doing that. But my boat, I think the dry weight on my boat is 900 pounds.
Oh, really?
And on water, dude, it's so it's kind of a cool boat because it's a tracker, but it's a tracker pro team. So it's an 18.5-foot tracker, which the classics are only a 17-foot boat. So it's still that same kind of John boat hybrid where it's a John boat in the back and a V in the front, but it's a wider and longer than a normal bass boat. It's like a special edition one that they make every few years. And so it's an 18.5-foot, but a little bit narrower than your standard Phoenixes and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And that's why I bought it. I paid too much money for it. It was a dumb investment overall, because it had a shitty trolling motor on it that I should have just saved money to upgrade. It only has a 60 horse motor on it, which to be honest, I can go to almost 30 miles an hour in it, which is plenty for me. I don't need to go 80. Yeah. Actually, honestly, I have so much ADD. It's better that I can't go 80 because I'm like, oh, look at that ego, bam, and then I'm running into something. I just wouldn't. It wouldn't be a good thing for me, anyways. But
yeah, exactly.
But yeah, dude, you should definitely come up this summer.
Dude, absolutely. I'm totally into it. But you know what I've said? My favorite way to fish, even more than kayak fishing, even more than bait fishing, is somebody else's boat. It's the best.
Yeah.
I'll gladly pitch in for gas. You know, hell, I'll buy lunch. You know what I mean? I love it.
Yeah.
It's my favorite way to fish. You know, 100%. Always a good time. Yeah, and I'm down, dude. There's so much, like the Connecticut River, especially, like it's just one of those fisheries that like we both have access to, but like we're not using it at all. And there are so many big fish that are in that river system. You know, there's also a lot of disgusting.
What's crazy is I never even thought about it, but I was talking with Nate actually.
Yep. All right.
And I was like talking about like I really want to catch stripers. I never even thought about the fact if you go south enough on the Connecticut River, they do actually go into the Connecticut. They don't go very high up.
They come up to where I am.
They do come up to where you are.
Yeah, they come up to where I am easily. And I mean, yeah, it's, you know, and there's a fish elevator on that dam at Route 116. Yeah, there's a fish elevator up there. So like when the shad runs, they get up there, you know. And I'm sure that there are some stripers that get up in there too.
That's a bucket list fish for me to catch. I've never caught one, and I really, really want to. They're delicious fish. I don't really like eating fish as a general rule.
Yep.
But striper are like the chicken nuggets of the sea. Like they're good. Like the meat in them is just like I don't know how to explain it. Like it's just a good eating fish. It's kind of like walleye. Actually, it's in that same kind of category where.
Come on now. Was good as walleye?
Not as good as walleye. No. Nowhere near that. But
no, they are
the
good.
Funny part is, dude, is the only walleye I've ever actually caught was on Lake Ontario by accident.
Oh, really?
Trolling for king salmon.
Oh shit!
Of all things. Yep, they were hitting freaking dude. One day, and it was before I got into bass fishing. We were on Lake Ontario, dude. We were catching fucking smallmouth down 120 feet on Howie flies, which is basically like a bass jig.
Yeah.
So it's basically a mylar bass jig with a treble hook. It's pretty much what a Howie fly is. Yep. And we were catching small. And the thing is, dude, I know now, and I feel awful about it. We were killing every one of them because we were bringing them up really fast.
Oh yeah,
we were catching like 4-pound smallies on freaking treble hooks down 120 feet and ripping them up.
Yeah,
unhooking them and releasing them. We never fizzed them. I didn't know any of that stuff, so I had no idea you even needed to do that. So I probably killed 7, 8, 4-pound smallies in Lake Ontario because I had no idea that you needed to do any of that.
That's rough.
Because we were they swam away. So we thought they were fine. But I'm sure they were bloated as shit because we were pulling them up from deep.
Oh, yeah. You fucking full on the bends.
And we were using, we're using freaking Daiwa downrigger rods with fucking 8-foot, stuff that's made to bring in a 40-pound king salmon. So they didn't stand a chance fighting against that kind of tackle. So they were coming right up and then going right back in because we didn't know anything about it, dude.
Crazy.
It was crazy.
Huh.
But yeah, it was funny. The only time I ever caught a walleye was freaking on we've caught a lot of weird stuff out there that way. Like in that's another place that I've always wanted to bring my bass boat out and fish like the shorelines.
Yeah.
But the problem is it's hard to commit to a trip out there because you're doing a lot of these vacation stuff. The worst part about those trips, dude, is the weather could fuck you. And then you traveled all that way.
Oh yeah. Yeah, 100%.
You're like, oh fuck, I can't fish today because the weather's fucking me up.
Well, and that's why you've got to know going into it, plan for it. Okay, so what's going to be happening weather-wise? When we did Moosehead, when I was up in Moosehead with Delirious, we knew that it was going to get windy later in the day. And we're like, the wind's going to pick up. So the earlier we can get out, it was this weird sort of balance. That water was only 42, 43 degrees. It was so cold. And
dude, I would love to go in Maine too. That's another one that I want to try.
It's wild, dude. Maine is I really think Maine is just the wildest place in New England. I really
probably is.
It is crazy. And
I think of Vermont as rural, and then I see I've seen a lot of Becca's videos where she'll go to randomly she's just going to Maine to ice fish or going to hang out with one of her friends up there, and it's I'm watching her go drive, and I'm like, we have a few roads like that, but it seems like everywhere she goes in Maine, it's the ruralest of rural areas. Like, and that's the kind of stuff I love. Like
Yeah.
I'm totally okay with going down what would be considered a 4-wheeler trail 5 miles to launch my kayak, to sleep on the side of the, lake and fish. Like that's awesome for me.
That's basically what we had to do. It was 6 miles of logging trail in from the actual pavement that we had to do to get to the bank where we were fishing. I found this spot on a map and I was like, this looks awesome. We're gonna send it. And I didn't even know that Delirious didn't have 4-wheel drive. And we're both pulling like this was in it was Cinco de Mayo. It was in May, the mud season there. And like we stopped off at this one tackle shop, and it's this coolest little place. It's right in Greenville. It's this tackle shop, grocery store, like outfitters, everything you could possibly want. Like I filled up my propane tanks there, everything. It was great.
Awesome.
Yeah, it was like the last, but it truly is. It's the last stop of civilization, and then you're getting into the real like main the woods. And we were talking to these guys, and they're like, "Yeah, what are you driving?" And we told them, and I was like, "No, we should be okay." They're like, "It's the mud season, so just be careful." They're like, "You're towing trailers." We're like, "We're total morons. Kayaks on them, yeah. The nice light trailers are gonna go all over the place."
Yeah,
and I mean, we made it happen. It worked out okay. We got kind of lucky, but we got down there, set up camp, and then it was so cold. It got into the 30s over at night. Finally, the sun comes up, starts warming things up quickly. Like the high air temp that day that we had fished, I think was like 60, which is excellent. But when the water
felt good when it was 30 at night. Yeah,
exactly. When the water is that cold, we're like, all right, so we're gonna have to grind to find these fish. So I'm out there with my side scan on, just looking at everything, trying to take in all this information. We put like 2 or 3 hours in, and then the wind starts kicking up, and it's like. It's just one of these things. And Delirious has rolled his kayak in like close to freezing water. And he's like, he doesn't like to fuck around with that shit at all. In fact, when he did that, Chris from A-Bay Lures, Chris and Christina reached out, like helped him get started on replacing baits and stuff like that. They hooked him up in a major way. It was a big deal. So, we went out and we're like, yeah, I don't know about this. We'll go ahead and, we'll try a different spot. We at that tackle shop, we got a little bit of intel from these guys about another pond, and it's a good thing that we did because the wind was crazy there, but it is significantly smaller than Moosehead Lake. So there were spots where we were able to actually get some shelter, from the wind a little bit. I was just going like head into it. I was like, fuck it, man. I was catching them. But it sucked. Like I would try to fish this one stretch of bank, and they were eating a 1/2 ounce inline spinner with a big blade, like I think like a 1 or a 2, like the big blade, and chartreuse with like a black and red dressed treble, and unbelievable. And I mean, I caught 2 stripers and a couple of lake trout, but it was like I would spot them on my 2D sonar. And I'd say, all right, cool. So I'm going to back up. I'd go and I'd pedal into the wind up as much as I could and just let it push me down. And I'd make a cast and I happened to just time it just right where I put that spinner right in front of that fish. And I was like, it was huge, like boost of confidence and like starting to understand electronics. That was probably the coolest thing about the fishing.
You were live scoping with 2D basically.
Essentially, it was like, okay, so I'm looking and I can see this. All right, cool. I'm going to go reposition myself and let the wind. It was the ultimate, like letting the wind kind of guide you.
It's funny, dude. That's what I do a lot with my kayak. Is what I've learned is the one thing you learn with especially with a pedal drive, because with a paddle you're just pretty much at the mercy of the wind all the time. But what I learned is you figure out if you know it's going to be windy. What I do is I literally head right into the wind. I kill myself right off the bat. I head right in the wind and I go as far up as I plan on going. And then I kind of ride it back. And then I basically use my pedal drive like spot lock. So I'll like ride it back for a little while and then I'll stop and then I'll find a spot that I want to set up. And then I'll point into the wind, like you said, and then you pedal just enough where you're basically on a treadmill and you're not going anywhere. But you're not going forward or backwards, and you're basically spot locking yourself. I've had a guy actually in a deep V, kind of like that boat I was telling you about,
Yep.
I was on that lake that I did the Mayhem tournament on.
Oh, okay.
And it was windy as shit that day. And this guy comes over in this boat. He was trolling for I think it was rainbows. He has a littler version of that deep V. And he comes over and on his way out, and he's kind of stopped by me and he goes, "You got a motor on that thing?" And I'm like, "No." And he's like, "How the fuck are you staying in one spot? I can't even do that with my spot lock."
And you're
I'm
like, I'm exhausted.
I just literally looked at him, smiled, slapped my thighs, and just kept pedaling. And he just kind of laughed and drove off. But I was like, dude, you learn how to do it. And honestly, that's the hardest part. That's actually why I want spot lock in my bass boat, because I can boat position really, really well with my kayak.
Yeah.
When I need to get in the right angle for a cast, and I watched the video back. When you record yourself, it's really funny because you watch the video and I'm like flipping that freaking rudder around, and then I'll pedal backwards and forwards and then backwards, and then I'll turn, and then also my boat will just lock in place, and then I'll cast and I'll reel it in, and like you literally get so good at it. I had a guy actually comment on one of my videos. He's like, "Dude, that's really smart that you backpedal when you hook a fish." And I'm like, I don't even realize I'm doing it anymore.
Yeah, it's like second.
Like, nature. I don't think I could ever own a Hobie because I literally, as soon as I realize I'm backpedaling before I swing. Like, I'm instinctually going, "That's a fish." Backpedal, hook set, all one fluid. Like, you don't even realize you're doing it, but you're giving yourself so much more leverage when you do that. Because if the first few times you do a hook set in a kayak, and PJ's laughing because he's probably definitely had this happen, where you go fucking yeeting towards where the fish was.
Oh yeah.
And I've gone barreling in the lily pads when I used to have a sit-in kayak, because I would go like do a jig hook set, the knock their face in hook set, and then you're just going. Then you got to reel really fast because your kayak is flying towards the fish, so you're both meeting in the middle.
Yeah, exactly. I do it a lot because I fish a lot of overhanging cover, like trees come down, and I've had situations where I'll flip, a jig in or even a Ned rig or something, and I'll set that hook, and your boat will just start inching toward that. When you've got trees in front of you, you're just like shit. So like, all right,
the worst part is when you don't realize when you're moving just slow enough that you don't realize you're getting close to it until you start hearing the rattle of your rod tips hitting off those branches.
Yeah.
Or you start backing up and you think you're clear, and then your rods start removing themselves from the rod holders. I've had to catch rods.
I've never had that happen.
I've
had like the tips get caught in trees and stuff like that. I've never had them get pulled. Knock on wood, because that would.
Dude, I actually casted one of my rods one day. I took a jig and I went back and went forward, and the fucking rod went, and I had to catch the handle. Like, I caught it just on the butt, like right below the reel. Like, I went boom, and I went forward, and I like just saw out of the corner of my eye like this spear coming by my head, and I just reached up. Instinctually, completely, like, I don't think I could have done it on purpose, just straight adrenaline instinct, caught that rod, bird's nested the shit out of my reel because I set my reel down and just went, but I saved the rod. And actually I dropped the rod on my first tournament with MAKB. I dropped the rod right off the back of my kayak.
Oh, really?
I got lucky, dude. So it was windy, and I went to set it in my rod holder, and I just missed. And just dropped it right off the side of my kayak.
Yep.
Because I wasn't trying to turn around because it was so windy. I didn't want to change my body positioning because I was afraid I was sideways in the wave. And I thought I was over the rod holder, and I let it go. And then I realized when I looked back that luckily I was in like 4 feet of water. So the tip of the rod, it just stuck right in the mud, and I grabbed it and pulled it up out. I did so much dumb shit like that.
I have had that happen where I've thought it was in a rod holder, and I've dropped it back. This was, I think, when I was fishing out of one of Sean's old Ascend kayaks, and I was like, "Oh shit, dude, I don't know what I'm going to do here." And he happened to have a one of the Ascend, like I think the Ascend Tournament Pro or something, paddles that have that notch, that line retriever,
the hook on it. Yep.
That thing is so handy. Like, if there's one thing Ascend makes that I am like, dudes, I am here for it. That thing has saved me losing like, oh, something goes over, and I'm like, all right, cool, let me go ahead and grab that, and I can go ahead and pick it up. Unbelievable.
That is, I've actually considered getting another paddle for that reason because, like a jig or a Ned rig. Ned rig is good for this. You're fishing Ned rig around wood, and it's just on top of the log, and it's just barely buried in that log.
Yep.
With those paddles, you can get in there and like pop it out.
Or you have a section where you have like the main trunk right here, and there's a small branch.
Yep.
And you're pulling right over, and it gets stuck right here.
Yep.
Like shit. Well, yeah, you pop that paddle on, and just let it glide over.
And you can just, because with the width of the end of the paddle, it doesn't really work. But with that little notch on the side, you can kind of get it onto the shaft of the hook and just pop that thing out of there. It's a really cool. I thought that was like, honestly, I thought it was just an aesthetic thing. I thought it was like, oh, that's kind of neat. They put a fish hook design in the paddle to make it look cool. And then I looked it up and I'm like, oh, that's
that
to
is
get your line back out. That's actually got a purpose. Because
Really
I've thought about buying those like weird ring things that you send down through to like
those work really
well.
Snap
the link.
Yeah, Tim Jakes has one on his boat that he's got on an old rod, an old spinning rod, and he just takes that, hooks it, and then just like opens up the bail on that, and it just boom, done.
Yeah, and it just smokes it.
Every time I've been out with him, it's done the job. Like he likes to fish a lot of blade baits, and they're gonna get stuck.
Well, and a lot of blade baits too have that weird single hook too. They have like that weird.
There are some of them. They have that or they have that single hook, and then they'll have like a blade on the back.
Yep.
Like willow, like underspin almost. I've seen those too.
No, I bought a blade bait that has like the double. It's almost like a treble hook, but doesn't have the third hook to it.
Yes. Yep. I've seen those as well.
Rapala makes a lot of those, and like those get hung on fucking every. See, that's the problem with a lot of that stuff is like around here. That's what screwed me up fishing your lakes, dude. You guys have a lot of rock.
Yeah.
We don't have that here. We don't have hard bottom anywhere.
We don't really have hard bottom. Like that spot that we fished over there.
Well,
like
sand, yeah.
There's a lot of sand in that area, especially in the deeper water. But we have a lot of muck and a lot of weeds.
Yeah. And it's weird. Like for me, there's a lot of baits that I haven't really done a lot with because of that, because I never had the purpose of it. Like like deep diving crankbaits are basically useless to me.
Yeah.
Anything bigger than like a 4XD is not really valuable to me, because once I start getting down that low, I'm going to start hanging that stuff in milfoil and it stays there.
Well, that's why I like to fish a lot of lipless a lot of the time.
That's what I do.
Like I'm like square bills for when I'm really shallow and I want that deflection off of wooden rocks. I'll do that when it's really, really shallow. But really, like if we start talking more than 5 feet, I'm just going to throw a lipless most of the time, because we have so much for grass, and like I can just rip those, and
I did a video on that, dude. That's literally what I do is I take the lipless, I get to a place that doesn't have a lot of crap on the bottom, like a lot of stuff between the bottom, and I count it down, because that's the one thing I've noticed. And it's I'm sure there's somebody out there that understands the science, but water temperature and current really affects fall rate. Like bait falls entirely different in the spring than it does midsummer than it does in the fall. So a lot of times I'll count it down. So I'll just count it. I'll just cast it, let it hit. Okay. I know how long it took me to get, I'm in 9 feet of water. I know how many seconds it took that to fall 9 feet. And then I count how far I want it to fish 6 feet. I count down to 6 feet, and then I start reeling it. And that's what I do. And you just slow roll it horizontally. And I think in a way it almost works better, because it doesn't catch. Like the thing about the deep diving crankbaits that I've figured out is like that number on that bait. And for people that don't know this, just because it says it dives to 12 feet does not mean it'll ever see 12 feet, because that is based on the exact line recommendation, the exact water condition, the exact speed that you retrieve. There's a lot of variables that makes that go to 12 feet.
Yeah, exactly.
Whereas a lipless is really uninhibited. It's a piece of heavy plastic that's just going to sink if you don't reel it.
Yep.
So it's going to go as deep as you want it to go. It is going to come up at an angle. It's not going to stay as flat as a deep diver will.
But. Oh yeah, exactly. I found a lot like probably my favorite lipless cadence is burn, pause.
Yep.
Burn, pause. and that's probably one of my favorites. I do the same thing though, counting with bladed jigs too. You know, I'll cast and then I'll retrieve, and what I'll do is I'll cast, and it was Sean that got me thinking about this, was just counting whatever that increment is, keep it consistent. Count and then retrieve. Oh, I'm getting weeds there. I'm getting hung up with weeds. Okay, we'll count one less. Okay, cool. We'll see until you get to the point where you're like, all right, cool. I'm just, whatever it is you want to do, just ticking those weeds, or, you want to get it actually stuck and then rip it. There's that too. So there's a lot that you can do. And those types of baits I feel like are really versatile. And that's what I appreciate the most out of fishing gear, is the stuff that is versatile, the stuff that's not dedicated to just one thing. Although I am starting to see some benefit of that. Like I have this one specific spinning combo that I just want to leave tied with a drop shot at all times.
Dude. So it's funny is I bought the Guggen spinning rod. Yep. And I bought it's like the weirdest combo. So I bought a Cast King Spartacus spinning reel.
Okay.
And a Guggen spinning rod to go with it. And that rod, that combination, it's funny when you start doing this for a long time. I had a Ned rig on that, and that's actually what I caught almost all of those mayhem fish on, was that combination.
Oh, no kidding.
Right. So
nice.
It's very hard for me to cut that net off, because it's like, I know this works, and I don't know if it's the line, I don't know if it's the rod, the reel, but that rod, it's like dedicated to Ned rig now. So you start getting specialized rods for like, this one always works with this bait, so I'm just going to leave it tied on. So then that's why, if you guys have ever wondered, anybody listening, if you ever wondered why bass boats have 40 rods on the deck, is because eventually you get to a point where you're like, instead of cutting and tying all day, you just I have a jig rod, and then I have a Ned rig rod, and then I have a crankbait rod, and then you may switch colors, but then you don't have to constantly adjust your leader length. You don't have to adjust everything to it. You just find what works, and then you start rolling with that. And that's where I've gotten more technical, but then I've had to backpedal on that too, because at the same time I'm trying to teach people how to fish on a budget, and then I'm like, oh yeah, you should fish on a budget, and then you look back here and those are my backups. Like, those aren't even my actual rods I fish with, are out in that shed that I was making baits in earlier.
Oh,
like, those are the reserve ones. So it's crazy. Like, the BFS thing, I want to get into
meth
it.
Mansion. That's what it is. The
meth man. I should call it the Meth Mansion. I might actually name it that. That would be awesome. But yeah, no, dude, it's funny how that BFS stuff that you've been getting into, that is right up your alley though, dude. That's how you,
for the multi-species stuff, for sure. Like, I mean, I really, like 2 years ago, it'll be 2 years, I guess last year, I had gotten into trying to throw more of the big swim baits, and I definitely still have an appreciation for them. I'm a little bit, I will say, stuck like in a certain type. Like, I really like to throw the big wake baits. They're what have performed the most for me. I've still been throwing other stuff though. I've been throwing around bull shads and S-wavers and things like that, and some soft plastic swim baits, like some big like castaic ones, and but and mag drafts. Been throwing mag drafts as well. But I have this comment from Michael Bradley.
Exactly.
A jig rod and a green pumpkin jig rod, and so on and so on. Yeah, that shit just happens. That's just my real life. But it is funny. Like, I got a little bit into that, but I just wanted to do it all, and I'm finding that like the specialty rods that I'm looking into, the specialty combos, are truly specialty combos. Like, I picked up a carp rig, just so I could fool around with that and and see what that's all about. And I've been having a blast with it. It's been absolutely nuts.
That's where the multi-species tournament stuff, that is, I started carrying a jig rod so I could throw a bobber and a worm. So when stuff started like getting tough and I wanted to like catch a quick bluegill, or I wanted to fish some of those smaller like the crappie jig heads and stuff like that are kind of hard to cast with bass gear, I started I have an actual spinning reel. Like, it's a small size spinning reel. It's not the one that comes with the jig rod, and I put that on a jig rod so I could still have some castability.
an ice rod, right?
Ice rod. Yep.
Okay, all right,
Like
all
an
right.
ice jig rod, yeah. So
Yeah.
basically it's literally like it's I think it's actually a Frable. I think it's literally like one of the ones that you buy
Yeah.
at like Walmart.
Yep.
And I started carrying one of those in my like kayak, like in the actual
Yep.
front part in the little stall area. And then I started carrying like literally beetle spins and
Yeah.
freaking like small size baits, because that multi-species tournament, it's like the thing that I like about that is that if you're having a bad bass day, you're like, fuck it, I'm gonna go over into this little bay, I'm
Yeah.
gonna drop my anchor, and I'm gonna go try to catch an 8-inch bluegill, because I haven't
Dude,
checked that off my list yet.
I have spent days that were where the stuff that was on the agenda to target were like crappie and
Yep.
rock bass, like shit like that, where I'm like, okay, these are species that I need. We're gonna go for it. And the day may have turned into an amazing bass day.
Yep.
Instead, and like, does it suck for the tournament? Absolutely, but it's still awesome. I'm still
Absolutely
gonna
fun,
let it
yeah.
rip. I will tell you this much. I have been it was Chrissy Fishing that got me into throwing the beetle spins.
Yep.
For a lot of those smaller species that are in the tournament. And I will say this, I have been like kind of modifying a lot of the beetle spins, but when we signed on with our partnership for Omnia Fishing, I started looking around at some of the brands that Omnia carries, and Omnia's got it covered on a bunch of, like if you're looking for something specifically, Omnia probably has it. They
Yep.
probably carry it. So I looked into some of the Johnson lures, the beetle spin line. There's a wide variety of sizes, weights. There really are. Like I thought it was just like a one and done sort of thing.
No,
Like,
there's some of them that are almost as big as a traditional spinner bait.
yeah, there's some that they're absolutely huge. And I mean, dude, I'll tell you, like a lot of my trout fishing this year, a lot of the good trout that I've caught have been on a beetle spin where I've replaced it with like an 8-ounce or a 16th ounce open hook Ned with a 2.8-inch Kitech.
Okay.
Dude,
Yeah.
and it slays. I wish I would have figured this out at Camp Hookset, because
Right.
it was afterwards, because I think that might have been what would have done the job, like throwing an 1/8 ounce or even a quarter in some of that real heavy wind.
And honestly, dude, if you're getting into that BFS stuff, that would be the perfect setup to throw that kind of thing on, because that would throw that kind of bait on.
For sure.
You'd
That's
be able
why
to really throw that really well.
That's exactly what I want to do, because I do. I have a spinning combo that I throw finesse jigs and Neds and all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
Weightless plastics and things like that. It works. It's great for that. And it's a 7-foot extra heavy, or not extra heavy. It's a 7-foot medium extra fat.
I was gonna say, how the fuck are you casting that with extra?
Yeah, it's a literal pool cue. No,
yeah, I was gonna say,
and it's fast as hell. But for that style of fishing, it's great. Then I have this other spinning combo that I use. That's a 7'3", extra fast, medium light.
Yep.
And it is what I prefer to have. I use that to do some trout fishing with, but I also primarily like to have a drop shot on that. And let's be honest, like a drop shot will catch everything.
Oh, dude, if you do, yeah.
Yeah.
That's this year. I want to one of my goals. So every year I do like a goal episode. So I guess this is like a preview of it.
Yeah.
I want to learn. So I have Nemesis Lakes, which me and PJ did an entire like podcast on. So I have a couple of lakes that like I just have struggled on, and I want to beat them and catch some good sized fish out of them.
Definitely.
And the other thing I want to do is like I'm gonna literally do an entire episode where I'm literally only going to bring spinning rods and drop shots. Like I'm going to literally leave my hard baits at home. I'm going to bring a bunch of different trailers, and I'm going to bring 3 spinning rods rigged up for drop shot.
Yep.
And that's what I'm going to use all day. It's going to be the same thing with a jerk bait. I'm going to pick a day where the conditions are what their textbook. I'm not going to just do it. Like I'm not going to start drop shotting an ice out or something like that. Like I'm going to pick the right conditions and everything.
I don't know.
It might work, may not.
I would.
It might work. Yeah. And then, so basically like I'm going to go through and do it. But drop shot's one of those techniques that has eluded me for a long time because I'm not patient enough, and I need to just, because what I was saying, like the whole thing what you were saying about differences in fishing, I think, and it's a weird, like it's almost spiritual, but I believe your confidence transmits down that line to that bait.
I've heard that before,
because there is sometimes like there are some times where I'm using a bait that has no business working, but I feel like it's going to work and I catch a big bass on it. And you fish next to somebody with the same bait, with the same, you could hand somebody, you could literally get the factory to make you 2 rods and reels that are virtually identical, with line that's virtually identical, and have everything exactly the same, stand shoulder to shoulder, cast in the same spot, and I catch a fish and you don't.
Yeah, exactly.
There's just something about your aura or something about you're doing something slightly different. So I want to try to expand my knowledge so that I can have confidence, because I think I will be able to catch fish if I have the confidence to just throw that bait.
I tell a lot of people, because I get stuck into it too, and like I lovingly call it junk fishing, which is a style of fishing.
Yeah.
But I will often just get spun out like trying different baits, or I should say, this happened to me a lot more, where I would be throwing a presentation, a moving bait, let's say, and I wasn't getting bit on it, and I would just say, okay, cool, we're gonna try this. And lots of times it was just blindly, not like trying to pick apart the pieces. And I've grown a little bit since then, and I've started to kind of figure some things out, put pieces together, and kind of like figure out the right decisions to make, things to try. The one thing that I still remind myself, and if anybody ever asked me like, hey, what's the one tip you would give an angler with any level of experience, I'd say, before you cut off that bait, try a different cadence, try a different speed. Absolutely. Make sure that you've done everything that you can, you know, like it's like when you're fishing with like I'll give you a perfect example. Actually, I was just out at this one river, and I had it's a place I affectionately call
Browntown.
And I go to I'm there because there's a good population of brown trout there. It's the only place I've ever caught brown trout. Now I take that back. There's another spot that I have as well, but there's some good ones in there, and there's some good smallmouth too. So I'm like, yeah, man, brown trout and smallies, I'm game. So I go over to this one spot, and there's a couple of like big boulders. It's in a section of the river where there's a big bend that kind of comes around, so the depth is kind of sharp, you know. And it's just as it comes around that corner, it's got a heavy current side and it's got a lighter, more slack water side. And there's just rock piles in the right kind of spots. So in the last Dark Horse tackle box, there was Madmouth Baits, I think is the name of the company. They made a screw lock jig head, and the screw lock jig head is awesome. So I think what I got was a 1/8 ounce in green pumpkin, or maybe black, and it's got just the perfect size hook to line up with the 2.8-inch Kitech. Yeah, that's what it is. Those
right
they're awesome.
That box.
I went and what I've been doing is they're in that same box. There are Semanis baits, Neds. These really nice with the ribbed sort of center part, so they wobble really good, but that back tail portion is hollow. So it's just got great action. Well, I put that on a EWG Ned just because that's my confidence, because I'll throw a Ned into more cover than anything else. It's less about it falling. So I put a Kitech on that Madmouth Baits tungsten, or that Madmouth Baits Ned head, and I would just cast this thing out, and I'm retrieving it as many different ways as I possibly can. Now, the last time I had caught smallies, we were dragging big, heavy, like 3/4 ounce wobbling football heads with different, soft plastic trailers, and they along rock bottoms, and like these smallmouth would just absolutely destroy it. And I was like, I'm just going to try this with that. So I threw that 1/8 ounce because it was really slack water, and I let it go all the way to the bottom. And I was like, we're just going to see what happens. And I was nervous I was going to get hung up on some rocks, and I just pull a little bit, pull a little bit, bang. I was like, oh, okay, so we just got bit right there. Okay, let's try this again. Hooked up with my first brown. I was like, this is amazing. So it's like, I always try to tell folks, like, it's one thing if you want to change like a different color or something like that, but make the first change before you switch anything or have to retie. Make that first change, changing your cadence, even just a little bit, change the depth, something. It can make a difference. And, if you get on them, that's the easiest thing to make an adjustment with, because you're not changing the lure at all.
Yep. It's funny, dude. So those Madmouth Neds? So how I told you about the Gambler Power Neds?
Mm-hmm.
It's that with a weed guard.
Yeah. Yep.
That's what it is. It's basically that with a weed guard. So that's why I use those a lot because I fish around a lot of wood, And that's the one thing about an open hook Ned is around wood is your enemy.
Loves wood.
It's going to either wrap around or it's going to bury itself in, whereas that weed guard like just kind of like lets it fold up over and it makes it so it doesn't get caught up.
Yep.
But I'm actually taking a page out of your playbook, I think, in the spawn this year. I'm actually going to take like a 2-inch Kitech and put it on like that same Ned head and fish like that smaller Ned on it with a Kitech and fish it like a swim bait. But like that's one thing I learned is like drop shotting. One of the most successful days I had drop shotting was actually a Berkeley Gilly of all things.
Oh, I could see that. Did you rig it horizontally so it kind of like?
I've done both. I've done hook it like you're hooking bait for ice fishing, like right through like the dorsal fin, so it like kind of just sits there. Yeah. But then also you nose hook it. So you take the spring locks, like those screw-in spring locks, like that you can buy. I screw those into the nose and then you hook it through that because it gives it a little bit more rigidity, so it can't pull through. And you cast that gilly out. The gillies are a little bit buoyant, so they will float a little bit. You cast them out, you let them sit for a while, and then you slow roll them back. Yeah. So what happens is that hook, that bait sits above that weight kind of dangles, and it kind of dinks off the bottom as that Berkeley gilly is just kind of swimming above the bottom. So it gives it like a weird swim because it kind of keeps it horizontal as it comes across the bottom. You have to like really slowly reel it though.
Oh yeah. I heard
so it's almost like fishing a wobblehead, but
no, that makes sense. Except actually it is a lot like fishing a wobblehead, except the wobbling part is that weight, your bait is just up above there. Luckily not getting caught. I was listening to another podcast. It was an episode of Tackle Talk and Dave Mercer was the guest. Right. And Dave Mercer has probably logged like more hours recording underwater video of fish than most other people. And he made a point on this show. And he was like, if you only had any idea of how often like people thought they were getting bit on a drop shot and they were biting the weight on the bottom. And man, if that isn't the biggest advocating statement for rig X / the high-low rig, I don't know what is. I was throwing a drop shot today and I was like, I really should tie a net on the bottom.
I've thought about it with that power net because that power net would be perfect for that bottom because it's got the jig head. It
all depends on the bottom you're fishing, you know?
Yeah.
Or an EWG, even in the EWG, tie a Texas rig down there if you have to, you know?
Yep. So there was a question for PJ on here.
Oh,
get to bring you into the show.
Hey, welcome back. What's PJ's game plan for the walleye trip? Live bait? No, we don't use live bait. We use spoons. We use jigs, and then we will use some jerk baits. Maybe even depending what the conditions are, we might even throw like some lipless. Get some action there.
Nice.
So PJ just moved up there, Bobby, and the funny part is he set himself up for failure.
Oh no.
So he went on his first trip and slammed. I'll send you a picture once I find it. He slammed this huge steelhead on his first trip out. So now he has like a high bar
the high
to accomplish autumn already.
Yeah.
That's tough, man. That is.
We talk a lot. I didn't realize how much we talk.
I'm telling you, man.
Me and you?
Me and you and Bobby. They asked about PJ, and I was like, shit, PJ hasn't talked in like quite a while.
That's okay. PJ was enjoying his beer.
There's nothing wrong with that at all.
No, heck no.
Oh, I love it, man. I freaking love it.
We are going on like 2 hours, though, and I'm sure Bobby's got stuff he's got to do in the morning.
I do. We got some recording we got to do tomorrow too.
All right.
Yeah. Good
Dude,
stuff.
I'm going to, I won't be on the, what time, do you know what time you guys are doing your live stream?
Tomorrow, we're going to be like regular time, 6:30.
Okay. Yeah, I won't be there. I'm going to be at the Burt Kreischer show in Albany, so I won't be.
Oh, nice, dude. Enjoy that. Burt's awesome. Funny as shit.
It'd be a great show.
It's at the MVP, whatever, in Albany. So
we got to come up. You know how Burt's the machine?
Yeah.
We got to come up with a nickname like that for you, Binya.
I'm down.
Machine. Oh, I got it. Hold on.
The apparatus.
There you go. Something. Dude, I almost did a live stream topless one day by accident. So I accidentally
Make sure they know it wasn't with me. Just make sure they know it wasn't
I
with
accidentally
me.
hit go live while I was trying to set up my cameras and stuff and didn't realize it. So luckily I hadn't set it. I'd set it to private instead of like live. So I was live streaming topless, setting up my cameras, but I kept walking up to the camera to adjust it. So like they were getting like a single nipple and then like my whole chest and then another nipple and then a chest. It was like, you know, the beginning of my OnlyFans career. Luckily it wasn't actually broadcasting. So,
you know, I'll tell you, people are disgusting. I was out fishing one day with Tim Jakes, and Tim, for those that know, those that check out the Western Massachusetts Fishing Report that Jigs and Biggs puts together. Tim's great. Tim is a tournament angler. He's awesome. I love hanging out with Tim. But Tim has this tendency of just snapping pics with fish, you know, decent catches that he has topless. So we call him Topless Timmy Jakes.
That's what that came from. I wondered where that name came from. But funny.
What's better is, so like when we fish together, he's like, "Oh, we got to take one for the gram." So there's a handful of pictures where I'm in the background holding my rod, going like, "What the fuck?" And he's like, you know, he's standing in front of the camera. So one day we were fishing. This was a Congamond, and like we found we were only getting bit on this one like ridiculously stupid, simple presentation. It was like a really small worm with on like a super light jig head, like I'd say an 1/8 ounce or less. And we're getting bit on it. And it was a great day. And I said, here's the deal. If I hit 10 fish, and I was doing like Instagram stories and recording bits here and there to put something together, I go, if we hit 10 fish, I'm going to take the Topless Timmy Jakes photo. That's what we're going to do. I think I caught 8.
That's
The
awesome.
amount of people, and I'm not going to throw anybody under the bus here, but the amount of people that were like, what the fuck, man? You got to give the people what they came for. And I'm like, what is wrong with you, man?
That's funny.
A middle-aged 300-pound man, baloney tits flopping all over the place. Nobody wants that. Nobody wants
that. To be honest, the main reason I don't fish topless anymore is because of sunburn. It's not even because of
that
like
too. Yeah, dude.
any emotional like I don't care necessarily. I walk around outside like that all the time, but that's why I wear these Bass Dash shirts, the UPF like coating on them and stuff. It's funny because I've had a lot of people ask me like, why do you wear a long sleeve shirt when you're fishing? It creates the weirdest tan lines ever, but I'm telling you, I'm cooler in this shirt than I am in any other shirt that I wear.
I love my my long sleeve hoodies. And you know, like that's the other thing too. When you're on the water and you're, you know, for a decent amount of time any day, when you're out there, you get into this situation where like the wind, it cools things down a lot faster than you think you realize. So like a lot of times, sometimes I'll even put like a base layer under one of those shirts. Just as like an extra layer, especially if it's going to be, if I know it's going to be windy, you know, it's just
and being a big guy, Bass Dash actually does real sizing. It's none of this new sizing. Their sizing is better than some. Like Hook runs small as hell.
It really does.
Like if you get an extra large, it's like almost a medium. Like it's not the same.
I will tell you, since you brought up the topic of fishing apparel for fat guys, let's go ahead and get into it. I think the best company for sizing is AFTCO.
Yeah.
I think it's the best. They have what they call their big guy line.
Yeah, I saw that.
And what I like about it is like the sleeve length for the size that you need is not directly proportional. Like they think like because you wear a 3X that you have arms that hang down, like you could just scratch your ankles standing up. Like it is crazy. So like with those Bass Dash shirts, I love them, but lots of times when I'm fishing, I actually roll the sleeves up instead of leaving them down. You know, because they'll get stuck on hooks. You know, all kinds of shit.
My left arm has the weirdest fucking tan line all summer because I roll it here. Because if it's down by your wrist, it like wraps around your hand. It's too
long.
Yep,
exactly.
So I end up rolling it up to like here. So I have this like fucked up tan line that starts here.
Yep. Dude, I do.
That's tan here and then
higher. And it's even worse for me because I don't have any hair. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So like between my hat and like Up, it's the what is it? The gator that they have sewn in goes up right about here. So I have the strangest tan on the back of my head.
Yep.
Like I'll take a day to fish right before I have like a wedding to do or something where I need to wear a suit and look like presentable. I'll go and I'll fish with just a t-shirt and no hat and no sunglasses. And I'll just go out and fish for like an hour and a half, 2 hours, something like that. Quick send just to get that little balance out a little bit, you know?
Yep.
Gotta do what you gotta do.
I get the weirdest. And then of course I used to wear Crocs when I fished. So I used to have the weird dot tan line on the top of my foot.
Oh yeah. People
that
think
really happens. That really happens.
Dude.
Oh yeah.
Oh, it does.
No. I don't own a pair, so I didn't know, but I always hear that. But
yeah, no, you'll get like the weird fucking polka dot on the top of your foot, and it will burn. No. You'll burn. Like you'll get little tiny fucking dots all over the top of your foot that'll be sunburns where the sun shine through those holes. That's actually why I want the cross kicks instead.
I like the cross kicks.
Cross kicks are freaking awesome because they're like basically wearing Skechers made out of Croc material.
Yep. Yeah.
So they're light. And the good thing about the cross kicks, prop for them, is Crocs will melt in the sun.
Oh yeah.
Cross kicks don't. I haven't ever had a problem with like I've had Crocs go down a size on my bass boat.
Really?
Yeah. Like I have a pair that actually were so melted that they actually had like they were like circle, like the side of the shoe went like this.
It just rippled, huh? No kidding.
Because it literally shrunk the shoe down to where I couldn't get it on my foot anymore.
See, I have there is a Crocs makes like a running shoe style that she actually has laces and you can lace up like a sneaker. And I've found this is before I ever even knew that cross kicks were a thing. And I was like, all right, we'll give these a shot because I don't know what it is about the sizing. Like I just have weird feet too.
I do too.
They don't fit in Crocs well. Like there's no support. Like I'm going to break an ankle. I walking around in Crocs, I feel like a baby giraffe.
Yep.
You know, like a newborn deer on the ice.
And they changed too. They used to be better, but then they started making them smaller, I think.
Yeah.
Like their sizing got weird because they suddenly were, because I have flat feet. I don't have an arch at all.
Yeah.
So my feet are really wide because I don't have like my foot doesn't curve. It's just like that.
Yeah.
So I have to buy wides on everything. And Crocs changed their I don't know if they changed their sizing or what, but it got to the point where like the inside of my foot would be like a rash because it was pressed against the shoe,
right up against the side.
It would rub on it all the time.
Yep.
The cross kicks don't do that.
It's freaking nuts, man. But I do. I think that good pair of water shoes are important, you know, for summertime on any boat. You know what I mean? Like there's nothing worse than having wet feet all day long. You know what I mean? Like
that's partially why I want a native too, is my old town has always got water in it.
You don't have scupper plugs that you can just pull? Really?
They don't work. They don't work because I'm too fat for it.
Oh, gotcha. So they submerge.
Because I only have the 10.5 foot model.
Gotcha.
To be honest, I'm right at the threshold between my body weight and the amount of gear I'm carrying.
Yeah.
I'm pushing that limit.
Yep.
And the thing is because it's so short, it never gets high enough off of the water. To let those scuppers drain. So the only way those scuppers drain is if I'm pedaling my ass off and I'm starting to draft. Then they'll start to drain. So my feet are always in water, which is why I like those cross kicks because they have that sole that's about a little under a half an inch thick. So if I do wear those when I'm out in the water, a lot of times I end up just going barefoot anyways. But when I do wear them, I can have like that lift above the bottom.
Yeah.
And then another thing is being able to have something that I can jump out and not get a hook or beer bottle or something in my foot.
That's exactly it. Yeah, you don't want to step on even like a sharp rock or some shit like that.
Well, we have zebra mussels like crazy. Like almost all of our lakes have them, and those are like razor blades, man. You step on those and you're cutting your foot open. So,
oh man, I will tell you. I think I'm curious actually about this. When you guys are in your kayaks in the winter, like, do you have a threshold that's like you're not going out anymore? Like it's too cold.
So
I'm curious, PJ. What's yours?
When like I say, lived in Ohio before Indiana, so up there, I generally stopped fishing like the 1st of November.
Yeah.
I always felt that the water was getting a little bit too cold.
Yep.
I'd fish right up until like Halloween weekend. That always seemed to be like a good weekend for steelhead fishing.
Yeah.
And then after that, I kind of dry docked it November 1st. That was the end of it.
That's kind of how I was this year too. I think I was getting out right maybe early November. I had gone and done some fishing out further east where it's a little bit warmer. Water temps were a little bit warmer. But when it gets to that time of year, I've started wearing like hip waders, like Frog Togs hip waders. And it's just that like when I launch my boat, I have to go stern first, and I have to get in the water in order to take the landing gear off when I'm rolling this in. Now I'm going to modify my trailer with a winch and all kinds of stuff, so that might make things a little bit easier. But once I'm in the boat, so when I'm doing this, just as efficiency, like regular muck boots aren't tall enough for my short ass fucking legs.
Nope, they're not. I learned that the hard way.
Yeah, and I know everybody says they're like, oh yeah, you shouldn't wear waders while you're in a kayak. You shouldn't wear waders while you're in a kayak. And I'm like, my plan is to not go over. But I wear them. Like I wear them with shorts. Like I don't wear a base layer under them, and I have insulated ones so that there is a small layer of insulation in there. I get in these things, and man, you want to talk about being uncomfortable. Like I'll only go out for about half of the day I normally would if I've got to wear those waders. Because once the sun gets up nice and high and that rubber gets real soft, and oh my God, it's awful.
I want to find, and I may end up having to spend the money on AFCO for this reason.
Yeah.
I bought Grundon, actually they're Helly Hansen waterproof pants, but they're like the deadliest catch fucking PVC style bibs.
Yep.
And they're awesome. And I use them in tournaments and stuff, and they're awesome.
Yep.
But the problem is you'll stay dry from the rain, but you're gonna be fucking soaked in sweat because they don't breathe at all. Nope. And you're literally wearing a contractor bag.
Yeah.
And there's no airflow. So like they're awesome and they work good in my boat. When I can move around.
Yeah, exactly.
They're fine. But when you're sitting in your kayak and trying to pedal all the time, because of all that motion and everything about it, I gotta buy some like good breathable. And the problem is Frog Togs don't really fit me that great because of this. They don't really go over my belly. So I'm gonna have to buy like AFCO or
those waders that those bibs that you pull up. Like a lot of folks have been I've been looking into dry suits. Like NRS makes some stuff. They're expensive as shit.
Wicked.
You know, that's the thing. And I'm like, is it worth it for the couple of weeks I might throw on for, you know what I mean? Like, is it really worth it? Or is it a better investment for me to get some ice fishing gear?
See, dude, that's the thing. So I actually looked at some stuff too, because and this is something where this will shut the people up for the argument about the waders.
Yeah.
Eskimo makes bibs that have buoyancy material in them.
There's a couple of companies that are like that.
Those are actually designed.
Yeah.
They're literally insulated, but they have the foam in them in different places. So if you did go in your kayak, they're actually going to suspend you.
Yeah.
My brother actually went in with them.
Yeah.
I actually watched them work one day. My brother literally was carrying, I don't know if I ever told you the story, but so my brother, we were ice fishing and we were in a derby, and I showed up and we caught a pike. My brother wanted to go weigh it in because he had the derby ticket. It was like one of those deals where you buy one ticket and everybody that's in your party is eligible.
It's like a group thing. Yep.
Yeah. So he literally wanted to go weigh it in, and he had my nephew behind him. And this is the most like fisherman redneck story you'll hear, but he's walking and he decided the way they do these ice fishing derbies is like there's a state campground on this lake, and they were just doing the weigh-ins on the beach.
Gotcha.
They just had a guy with a scale there, and that's what you walk over, bring the fish over, they weigh it, and then they put it on the board. Yep. So he was walking across the lake with this pike, and he's walking and he's getting further and further away, and then he's gone. And I'm like, oh, fuck. And then I hear my nephew yell, "Dad, throw me the fish." Because my nephew was more worried about making sure we could weigh that fish in the derby.
Then you.
And the fact that his father
Yeah.
just fucking disappeared through the ice. And then I see my brother bobbing on the fucking water. Those pants were literally keeping him. He never went below the bibs.
Oh, really?
They kept him suspended vertically, and he was bobbing from those bibs. So then he swam to shore, pulled himself up. Dude, there was like an inch of ice top to bottom on those bibs, and he was warm the whole time. He never got wet underneath those bibs. He actually wrote a letter thanking Eskimo for making those because they basically saved his life.
Yeah.
And they sent him the jacket.
No shit. That's amazing.
As a thank you for sending the letter. But dude, since I saw that happen like in person, because I always thought that's kind of a gimmick. Like, do those really work? Do they really? How much is that really gonna do? No, it literally kept him from going underwater.
No shit.
Which, when you're ice fishing, is really the deal because
the
water's cold. Yeah, you're gonna get hypothermia, but if you go under, you may come up under ice.
Yeah, you might be fucked. That's
so if you can stay on top of the water, you have a better chance of getting out of the water.
Yeah,
if you go completely underwater, you're gonna panic and you're gonna be fucked.
Yeah. Shit.
But those wouldn't be a bad thing to wear in a kayak. To answer your question, like my side of it, I stopped fishing not based on the temperature, really. It kind of is, but it's more like if I go out, and this is going to sound like egotistical, but I have lakes around me that it's very extremely rare that I skunk on. I'm not catching 5-pounders every time.
Yeah, but you're getting bites.
But I'm getting 2 to 3 fish in an outing. If I go out and skunk multiple times in like end of October, beginning of November, I'm miserable, I'm cold, and then I skunk a couple weekends in a row.
You're like,
that's when I go, done. I quit. I actually wanted to fish later this year. My goal was to fish later into the year, and I still could be fishing if I really wanted. There's guys still going out on Champlain getting smallies. Like, I've seen videos of guys still going out and getting smallmouth.
Oh yeah.
But the problem is for me, it's about, if I was going to go out this time of year, I wouldn't be in my kayak. It'd be in my bass boat where it's a little bit more safety.
Yeah, exactly.
Because you think about the fact that, like, there's a lot of things that are out of your control that you could end up in the water. And that's what I concern myself with. The latest I've ever fished was this year, but last year I actually was down in Rhode Island on Halloween.
Oh, nice.
I was doing a tournament down there, and I was camping in Rhode Island in a tent. That was brutal.
That's rough.
I actually spent a lot of the nights in my truck. That's actually what started my truck camping stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Because I actually slept more in my truck. I would just get in my truck and crank the heat and watch Netflix, because I was down there for like 3 or 4 days to pre-fish and then fish the tournament. And I ended up like passing out in the front seat. Couple that's not comfortable, but it was at least warm. So
yeah, exactly. And sometimes you gotta, that's the name of the game, So. I got a couple of big trips I'm trying to get together, but I got to figure out how to make it work, like just money wise, because some of these would be such a long trip that I would be losing so much income to do them. Because like I'm a gig performer, I'm a gig economist, I guess, or whatever you want to call it. So for me, it's like if I go a day or two, missing jobs, that adds up really quick. Some of these spots are out west, and I want to get out there so bad.
Dude,
so
see
if we can make some arrangements.
I was talking to Mainstream, and he's gonna be my teammate. I think we're gonna end up doing that adventure series on the Susquehanna.
Do it, dude.
I've started putting money away for it.
Yeah, I was talking with Drew, and when we had him on, I kind of want to go and do the experience. I was talking about actually with Delirious immediately. I was like, dude, that could be amazing. Let's do this. I'm like, we'll just enter as a team. We'll have ourselves some fun. Who the hell knows what's going to happen? It could be, but the whole experience just sounds insane. It just sounds
for me. It's like, if I don't even care if I place good, like it's the networking, being able to go down there, meet some really good anglers, hang out with some people, and just be there for the experience. From a content creator side, it's gold, because there's just so much content that would come from a trip like that. And you could do it pretty cheap. What's really neat about the way he set that up was, dude, have you been on their website? Have you looked at the site? Dude, they have every fucking campground for
it's
miles.
so well detailed. Oh yeah, everything. It's great. Like it's not even the cost. Like a kayak adventure series is happening. That's not even an issue with the cost. I'm talking like there's a trip. I had a listener reach out who was in Arizona, and he's like, bro, he's like, we have like 19 of the 22 species for the multi-species tournaments out here, and it's like it's Arizona. This is like he's like we have 4 seasons. Like where he's at,
Right.
it's not the desert. You know what I mean? He's like, there's plenty of dispersed camping, like all this shit. You would love it. So if I'm gonna do it, I got to be able to give it like a week. And I mean, if
At least.
I'm losing a few $1,000s if I do that. You know what
I
I
have
mean?
I have a friend that lives in like I think it's Tucson area.
Yep.
And like it's funny because it's a friend I met on Xbox that I've been friends with for 19 years. Never met in person, but we literally were talking today. Like I talk to her every day, and she keeps getting me to try to fly down there. And I'm like, anytime. It's funny when you're a fisherman. I'm like, could I fish? Like how do I fish when I get there? Like it's like, do they have water? Like anytime I'm planning a trip somewhere that's not Vermont, I'm like, okay, so how would I get a rod and reel there? Do I just buy a rod and reel and I fly down there and just say screw it and just buy a combo when I get there? My wife's cousin has actually been asking us to go to Texas, and I'm like immediately, I'm like, OHIV. Okay, yeah, where are you? How far are you from? How far are you from this lake, or how far are you from that lake? Because at that point, I'll save up money and book a charter, or rent a boat for a weekend. Because Texas, I feel like I could figure out pretty quickly and like at least be able to catch something decent. You know what I mean? Because there's a lot of lakes down there that they laugh at the fish we catch up here, and for the most part, like there's a lot of those trips. Dude, you've got so many trips planned though. I've heard like on the podcast, you're like,
there's a lot.
You're like becoming like the traveling fisherman at this point.
I'm trying to get the guest we have on the next show coming up. He's in South Dakota. I'm like, that sounds amazing. I'm like, pike fishing in that area sounds absolutely out of this world. Yep. Let's do it. I just want to get out there. Like, to me, that's what I want to retire and do is just travel and fish.
I can tell you right now, if I win that Powerball drawing in 3 hours, that's what I would do. I would literally quit my job. If I had enough money that I knew all my bills are paid and I had a substantial amount of money that was going to cover everything, I would literally buy probably a rig like Becca's, honestly, something like that. So I could have a camper in the back of my truck. I would put my boat and I would throw my kayak in my boat.
Yep.
And then I would try to catch a fish in every state.
Sure.
Just start driving.
Yeah.
That would be the funnest, like, I would do content creation and stuff all along the way. I basically would do like what Becca does. That's what I would do. Like if I was smart when I was younger, that's how I would have been. Dude, like that.
If any of us were smart, at age, man. Like I look at, like I was just talking about John B. He put out that Never Stop tour, the third one, and that first one, when I was it 2018, I think it was the first one was released. I was like, holy shit, dude, this is what I want to be doing. I want to travel and fish these interesting places and kind of like immerse myself in these different regions and, catch the fish that are there, or, try different techniques and fish with other anglers and share stories and, all this kind of shit. And it's pretty freaking amazing, man. Like there's some people that just don't get it. Like it's more about tournaments and, hey, that's cool, but like, I see that and I'm like, and the fact that, let's be honest, that kid is gifted when it comes to creating visuals,
that's the thing about content creation that you got to learn very, very quickly, or you won't do good, is you can't just catch fish. You have to tell a story. Now, how you tell that story can vary depending on what your content style is. Some guys do it with a ton of B-roll and music, and like Mikey Balls is really good at, like, he'll film, you could tell, like, you actually watch his videos and 6 of his 8 minutes are like B-roll of his video. Like it's not actually, it's just him talking about a topic and then showing you a bunch of drone footage. But the thing is that whole idea, and that's where guys like me and you kind of have an advantage if we could do that, because we could do it cheaply. You have to have this mentality of sleeping in a boat ramp parking lot and sneaking off to the cumbies when your stomach starts rumbling.
Exactly.
Mentality. If you try to stay at a hotel every weekend to do all that, you'd never be able to afford it. But
you're gonna go broke.
Like,
you'll never.
That would be a dream thing for me, is just like to travel around. I geek out. I'm actually not doing. I can't say that 100%, but I don't think I'm going to do a live tournament trail this year.
Yep.
I'm going to be working with Daniel from Southeast Georgia to bring a Northeast online kayak trail with an AOY and everything, but it's literally the Northeast. Like, it's not New England. It's like New York, Canada, Rhode Island. We included everybody from basically Pennsylvania up.
Yeah.
And it's going to have the same type of rules, and it's going to be just, you can fish where you want anywhere in the Northeast and enter those fish, because we can't really compete with the guys down south. Like, you're going to get beat in an inches tournament down there. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to be doing just that, and I'm backing off of live events. I'm not going to be traveling to Massachusetts every month because I want to go do a couple big events. Like, I want to go fish with Abe up there. I want to go do that Susquehanna thing, which is a live tournament, but to me, that's like a vacation experience. That's how I'm not looking at that like I'm going there to win the tournament. I'm going down there to meet people, to have fun, to say I went. I want to be able to say, this big thing, that this tournament series that's huge in 4 years. Oh yeah, I was there the first year I went to the Susquehanna event.
Yep.
Like, because he's going to do. He didn't do tournaments up our way this year, but that there's going to be a Champlain event, or there's going to be there might even be like a one in Mass or Maine, like he's gonna, because he's trying to find these obscure, out of the way places. He's not trying to do your big, super well-known bodies of water. I mean, Susquehanna is a big known one, but like if you look at the list,
but you don't have tournaments on there like you do, like you don't have rent boats,
right? So that's what I'm thinking I'm going to invest my money in this year, is doing some trips. Like, I want to go down and fish from Jermaine from Mainstream Fishings, and he lives in Jersey but does a lot of fishing in New York, and I want to meet up with those guys, and I just want to do more, like, because I love, like, when I came down and fished with you, dude, that was like, we didn't, I think, 2-pounder maybe, like, I don't think we caught any monsters at all, like
2 pounds. There was no quality.
It was a blast.
But what's funny,
it's just fun.
What's funny about that body of water, it's Pequot Pond, Hamden Ponds out here. It has a reputation for dink bass and dink chain pickerel, like tons of them. They're just endless. They do stock it with trout, so you'll definitely catch trout there as well. But there's the quality just isn't necessarily there. I caught an 18-inch largemouth. In there, was it in July? Might have been early July or late June. Real early in the morning. And for that body of water, that's a tank. It was crazy. I just felt so accomplished. I was like, this is awesome. It was in one of the tournaments where I needed a chain pickerel. I had just caught and released the chain pickerel. And it was like that next cast, bam, it got hammered by a big largemouth. I was like, what an amazing day. I think I got off the water right there. I was like, I'm good. I had a get together to go to over my cousin's place. And my wife was like, you're back already? I was like, I just had the most amazing day. I'm like, I'm not going to jinx it. I was like, I tried to catch a crappie on my way in, thinking maybe I could check another box off my list. I'm like, I can't. I'm good with this. I'll take that point and that accomplishment there. That's so for that body of water, and I've probably fished there 6 times, 7 times this year there. I would say that, that's definitely my PB. Largemouth over there,
Yeah.
So
it's crazy. That's why it was like, I was talking to Daniel, and I was like, because he was talking about his series that he does. It's a full month too. It's not like just one weekend.
Yeah.
He does a monthly kayak tournament. You pay $20 to be a member, and then you pay to enter each month. And it's basically like your KBF Challenge series, but the Northeast. And I was like, okay, so if I do that, and then I do the Jigs and Biggs, there's my competition side.
Yeah, exactly.
And I can fish wherever I want. If I want to go fish with Bobby in Massachusetts, I'm still in the Northeast. It still counts. If I want to go fish with Abe in New York, it allows me to continuously be tournament fishing. Now, granted, that's kayak only, so I'll have to make sure I fish that's what's going to burn me, and you're going to probably get some content. So be on the lookout for that this year, guys. I'm probably going to catch like a 7 or 8 pounder out of my fucking boat. That's going to be like a 24-inch fish that would win me that tournament. That's not going to be eligible because I caught it in my boat instead of my freaking kayak. But because I actually told him the reason why this tournament series came out was from a joke. Because I texted him and I said, "Hey, when do you start your kayak tournaments?" And he goes, "February." And I said, "So if I'm sitting on the ice in my kayak, jigging through a hole, does that count?" And he goes, "What do you mean?" And I'm like, "Dude, we don't have open water in February, but if I have to drag a sit-in kayak and sit in it on top of hard ice and jig through the hole."
Realistically, you can do for a kayak tournament trail, you can do in the Northeast, April to October.
Yeah. And that's what I told him. I was like, because that's the only way I'm going to be able to compete for AOI. And he's like, well, when do you guys start? And I'm like, dude, April, May? I'm like, safely May, realistically, because then you're going to get open water the beginning and end. April could be half and half. And he's like, okay, so maybe we'll start a Northeast one and we'll start it. So we're going to run it from May through September. Yeah. And the reason why we're cutting it off at September is because up here, bow hunting starts in October in the Northeast, and that tends to cut. And I'm sure you've seen that with like Jigs and Biggs too. Like October, November tends to be a down month on tournament participation because that's when hunting starts. And then a lot of the rednecks start to go.
We only do one in October. We go April to October on the multi-species tournament scavenger hunt. But we had this last October was actually pretty good. We had a pretty decent turnout. We had
I think that was the format change. But
that could have been it. That although September we started dabbling with some of that format change because Fishing Chaos implemented some changes that they weren't supposed to change until until October 1st, and they just kind of were like, no, we're doing this now. We do this
now,
and that's just what they do. Freaking bananas.
Gotcha. All right, we're going on 2.5. We probably should let Bobby get to sleep, and PJ looks like he's going to pass out too.
PJ's wide awake.
So,
I got more beer to drink though.
But yeah, guys, stay tuned to the channel because we're going to be. Bobby's going to be fishing with me. He doesn't know it yet, but I'm going to text him. And if you guys could see how many times I've invited Bobby to come fishing, that
it's game on,
something
dude.
has happened. So,
yeah, there is a spot that I'm curious if you've got any experience with. It's southern Vermont. It's not far from Brattleboro. The place is called Somerville Reservoir.
I've heard of it. I haven't fished it. But.
So it's abutted to a national forest, which like I've gone through and I've actually scouted it. It looks crazy. The ramp looks insane. Like it just looks insane. It's crazy steep with this little turn at the bottom.
Welcome to Vermont, buddy.
Yeah, that's
some of the shit we have.
But I'm like, I'm gonna just backing this thing down here is just going to be crazy. But people do it, and I guess there's a good smallmouth population in there, and so I'm thinking, yeah. And it's this national forest. The camping facility is really really good. It's like an old airfield that's that's grown over and stuff. And there's so many spots. Like you go there prime season, they're going to fill up fast. But there are so many different sites all over the place, and we should definitely make that shit happen.
Dude, so that's the thing is my goal is, so the weekends for me, my wife works every other weekend anyways, and she does the nursing thing. So she's just gone. I try to not go when she's working if I'm going to go on like an overnight trip, because then I have 2 dogs that are just here by themselves all day to destroy my house.
Yeah, you don't want to do
that. But, dude, any camp trips like that, like I'm going to end up I bought a New York fishing license and didn't even fish in New York this year.
Oh, really?
But the only good thing about the New York license is it's 12 rolling months.
Oh, that's good. So
if you buy in August, it's good to next August.
No shit. I didn't realize that.
So it's actually really nice. They're one of the only states that does that. Vermont is December 31st, you're screwed. So if you bought a license on December 1st, December 31st, your license is
That's all you got. Yeah. Yeah. Mass
sucks. So New York's not as bad, but if you're going to do like one of those camp out trips, anywhere and that's not like 6-hour drive.
Yep.
And even then, let me know, because maybe I'm going anyways. Sure. I love doing that. Like, because that biggest thrill for me
Yep.
And it's really simple, is catching a single bass in a place that I've never fished before.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, cool, I accomplished, I can say I caught a fish here.
Yep.
And that's what I love doing. So
That's
and camping out and stuff like that, dude, is like,
that's gravy.
It's not a big deal. It's not a big deal. It's honestly, it makes the trip worth it. Like that trip I was telling you about up north. I'm not gonna say the lake because I don't want that lake to be exposed, but I'll tell you that offline. That place where my buddy caught that smallmouth on a fucking jig rod.
Yep.
There's a campground right there, and there's like 4 or 5 bodies of water within 20 minutes that are all like, they have brown trout, rainbow trout, bass, pretty much the works. Cool. And
you get
it's an area where you can. They all have state ramps. They're all like, literally, you can go launch, and there's no fees or nothing. They're all regular state park type deal. There's an actual state campground that's on one of the bodies of water, so you literally can get a 4-day weekend. You could fish any of the 4 or 5 bodies of water that you feel like. So we're all going to go up with kayaks and just fish it, and just fish. And as I was going to do it with the boat, but the problem with doing a 4-day trip with a boat is, how do I charge my batteries? Because the campground I have doesn't have power.
There's no power. Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So, I mean, I've done it. They don't really like it, but I've snuck into the bathroom and sat there charging it in the bathroom. They don't really like it when you hook up a dual bank battery charger in the bathroom, but
I mean, talk to Joe Brown, because he's got mysterious ways of charging his batteries off of unauthorized facilities.
It's interesting. Let's see, with my boat now, it's only a 12-volt system, so I have a backup battery that I bring for longer trips.
So you can
and my kayak, dude, honestly, I run everything off of a 30 amp hour lithium.
Yep.
And that'll run me 3-4 days without having to charge it at all.
Yeah, exactly.
And I run my GoPros off that shit too.
See,
I have them all rigged up.
With stuff on my kayak, like I can go 3 or 4 days easily. With that Naqua, it's just a 10 amp hour battery, but I'm running a pretty small graph, like it's not anything crazy. But I have in the past, I've charged, like I'm lucky because in the back of my truck, I have a 110 outlet, and I have my Naqua charger that I keep right back in there. And then, like, when I'm going in between places, I don't take my battery out of the truck. I just charge it up. And when I'm it doesn't take me an hour to go here. Well, I'm going to charge this for an hour. Cool. Between there and back, it's perfect. It works out so good.
That's actually why I bought that lithium battery, because I could go. See, I have literally USB plugs in the front and back of my kayak.
Yep.
So that I can run my GoPros off of my main
battery. You could always have people bring an additional battery and swap them out each day if you needed to. Worst case scenario, or that might actually be a good argument to get a generator.
So I thought about it. If I was gonna do like traveling, like we were talking about, I would buy like a little Honda generator, like one of the ones that's somewhat quiet. Like Honda makes. I can't remember what it is. My dad has one, and it's not like obnoxiously loud.
Yeah,
it's like a low hum, and it's not too bad. So it's not a bad deal to just set, you could put it in your boat and then just sit there and charge your batteries. Because I have a dual bank charger in my boat. I can plug it in. I just need an outlet to plug it to.
You just need something to plug it into. Yeah, exactly.
And with doing a 24-volt system, I would have to bring fucking 6 batteries, and that would be like $1,000 worth of batteries.
You think about it, like if you bring a big jerry can, right, and you bring some extra fuel and you charge up that way, that's doable. Or if you're doing double the stuff, you could also always look into doing something solar during the day. The battery that's not in use, go ahead and do that. I mean,
my brother has that. My brother actually has a solar charger in his boat, and he uses it. It's actually a solar. It's a solar. It's like a maintenance thing. So like it will. So like while you're fishing, it actually is charging your battery.
Yeah, so that way it'll top it off as you're out there. It
just keeps topping it off the whole time. You don't get a ton of power from it, but it does it gives you a little bit more longevity.
Huh, interesting.
But yeah, dude, you should hit me up on that, because I want to try to do a bunch of campouts like that. And there's honestly a lot of places along the, like, I guess I'd be in the middle, but like there's a lot of stuff on the border of Mass and Vermont that like is about the same distance from you as it is from me.
Yeah, exactly. I'm down.
And I don't really care. I mean, dude, I'll drive 5 hours. I was driving
Oh,
fucking
yeah.
3.5 hours to fish
Dude,
Sean's
I-
tournament. So
I had a listener reach out to me, send me a DM, and she's like, I love your show. I love, like the multi-species tournament. She's like, all this is really great stuff. She's like, she's starting to create some content, and she wants to get on the podcast. Just how do we do that? I was like, just like you did, just mention it. I was like, holy crap, this is amazing. So I said, I sent the link so she could schedule the time, and she scheduled a time in February. And she's like, she's like, we don't have ice down here. She lives in like South Jersey, like near Philly, I guess.
Yep.
And she's like, we don't get ice down here like you do. She's like, if you want to come down and fish open water and do a camp and, we can record this here, then we can do that. And I'm like,
that'd be cool.
Fuck yeah, let's do that. That sounds awesome. Yep. And I was like, are we talking kayak send or are we talking, what's the story? She's like, oh no, kayak send. I was like, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
yeah, dude. Because you fished on? You fished Champlain recently. You haven't probably fished Southern Champlain at all, though, right?
I have never fished Southern Champlain. The only spot in Champlain that I fished was like up near like St. Albans, like that area.
Yep.
Yeah, northern area. That's the only only area that I've ever fished Champlain. And then Southern Champlain, I've never ever fished. So I'm game for all of it. I'm game for all of it.
It's funny because Southern Champlain, it's like two different lakes.
I've heard that before.
So when you hit Crown Point, where the bridge goes across, it's pretty much all largemouth from there south. There's very few smallmouth.
No shit.
It's all fairly shallow, murky, marshy. That's where I am basically. Yeah. So I'm about 20 minutes from that bridge, half hour probably.
Okay.
So the southern end, so like Ticonderoga, where you see like Bassmasters, where they used to launch out of like Ticonderoga, that's not very far from me. Because I can hit the Vermont side, which is Larrabee's Point, which is our access on our side, is not very far from the Ticonderoga access.
So you're not very far from like Lake George.
No, I'm not far from Lake George at all, really. Yeah. It's funny, it's actually shorter drive. So like if I want to hit a major city like for Burlington, it's actually probably closer for me to drive to Glens Falls, New York, Lake George area, than it is to drive to Vermont, Burlington side.
No shit.
About the same distance. Wild. Yeah, because I'm like kind of in the more southern part of it. The thing is, Lake George is a pain in the ass.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I've heard before.
The rules are stupid.
The reason why I bring that up is Chris from eBay and Sean had gone to Lake George. There was an EKF event that I guess Sean already, had some lodging set up for or something like that. So they went up there and had this like, they had a bitch of a time on Lake George. Like it was just ridiculous. And they were like, you know what? Screw it. Let's go to Champlain. And it was, and I was like, that's freaking awesome, man. Like they're like,
that's not far.
And they fished down in that area. And I guess I think Chris had actually some pretty decent fish. I don't think Sean caught anything that was impressive or anything like that. But
the thing is, they catch huge channel cats down on that end too.
Oh, really?
So a lot of guys, I've been talking to a buddy that does a lot of catfishing, and it's the weirdest stuff. They troll with chicken in red Kool-Aid.
Oh yeah, I've heard of that before.
And they literally, just troll, and there's an access down there called Benson Landing. There's not that much water. It's like 4 feet deep in a lot of places.
Yeah,
it's all murky, nasty catfish. Like it smells down there. Like the water has a smell to it. It's like one of those. I mean, you're familiar with that for some of the canals and shit in Massachusetts. It smells nasty because it's a lot of farm runoff and stuff. But the catfish they'll catch like 30-inch channel cats and shit down there.
No shit. Well, fuck.
So there's a lot of places like that around here. Like there's a lot of places. There's Chittenden Reservoir, which is that one I was trying to get you to come up to do too. That's all state land. So around that is the national forest. It's the Green Mountain Forest.
Okay.
So you can camp anywhere you want because it's state land. You can basically just launch your kayak at the boat. They have a full boat ramp, launch your kayak, and then so we should definitely set aside some time. The problem is obviously, you got your schedule is it's not fluid. You have, it's brides that decide your life for you.
That's exactly it. As much as I hate to say it, that's exactly what it gets down to. There's lots of wheels in motion.
But that's actually what I like about this setup, and that's what we should definitely do. Is
Oh, I'm down.
Because the beauty of that whole truck camping deal is we don't have reservations. So it's like, hey, dude, I got a wedding, I got to cancel. It's like, okay, no big deal,
It's
no
no
money
big deal.
lost.
Yeah, exactly.
There's
Exactly.
nothing to cancel. There's no scrambling to make stuff up.
You know, and that's the thing. If we can get ahead of it, like this is the time to be picking dates for shit like that. So
yeah,
let's do it.
Yeah,
man.
PJ, if you start driving now, you can probably make it.
And the beauty is, I'm trying to build a truck camper, so I'm down.
That's what I'm saying. This could be a new thing, you know.
I thought about getting so many videos on YouTube about building these truck things. It's crazy.
Oh,
yeah. Check out Becca's channel, dude.
She
basically rebuilt her truck camper like 6 times this year. Like she had this problem or that problem, and that's why she ended up where she ended up, because she was having so many problems that she finally. But I'm actually thinking about getting one of those soft toppers. So it's basically a cap, but it's made out of the freaking
it's like canvas,
convertible roof material type of stuff.
Yeah,
I'm thinking about getting one of them because I don't want it all the time. I don't want a cap all the time. But if I was gonna go camping with Bobby, I just take my tunnel cover off, slap that on the truck, and then now I have a camper in the back of my truck.
Dude, Delirious has a rig where he's got a full-on tent that just goes into the bed of his truck. He sets everything up, leaves the bed down, and there's like a little room, I think, that's out in front of that. So like he can stand up and like change clothes and shit like that, whatever. Yeah, it's a nice little rig. It's just all about, you know, how you want to do it. And I picked
the problem is when you're stealth camping, you can't do that. But I actually, dude, I measured this up. I could sleep under my tunnel cover. I figured out.
Oh yeah.
I actually figured out if I used a thin foam, like a sleeping pad, I could actually sleep under my tunnel cover if I had to.
I like the idea of stealth camping. I realize that it's a bigger pain in the ass than anything else.
It's stressful,
Like, and especially if you've got like your trailer and your kayak and everything, it's like, it's just not stealth, you know?
No, it's not. No,
it's totally not. So I kind of let that window, that sort of idea fly. I did pick up a ground tent recently and a couple of big, like Magnum sized cots, so that I can actually sleep very comfortably in that tent, which is pretty sweet. What's nice about it is it's kind of like a hub tent. So it's just, you know, I don't have to put like poles in the ground or anything like that. It's already actually ready to rock. So I can set this thing up almost anywhere. It's pretty slick, but you know, I'm not going to go to like a Walmart parking lot and set this up and have that go over well.
No, and that's why, dude. But there's a lot of places in Vermont that have like Appalachian trailheads and stuff like that.
Trailheads anywhere. Yeah.
They don't really care that you're there. So like even with a trailer, they're not really going to ask too many questions because no one really surveils those places.
Yeah.
So we should definitely talk, because there's a lot of stuff like that. And I love people love that kind of content too. Like just, you know, my video I made with you, dude, people ate that video up.
Hell yeah. I love it, dude. That sounds awesome.
So we'll have to do that up. But yeah, we'll let you go, dude. Otherwise we'll end up rattling into another conversation.
It'll be Sunday before you know it.
This is how Bobby's podcast works too. Dude, I don't think I've ever seen one under like 2 hours for the most part.
I was gonna say when I was looking them up, I'm like scrolling through. I'm like, because I have a 1 hour drive to and from work, so I got 2 hours to kill, and I'm like,
finish it.
I'm like, oh, okay, so I could go there, I could watch it. I'm like, no, it's like 245, 252. 310, 390. I was like, oh my god.
You know what's funny too, dude? I'm a Jake head, so you don't even see 30 minutes of it in between. Because when he says we'll be right back, then they start talking to us in the street. So sometimes that conversation goes on for 30 or 40 minutes in addition to what you're actually hearing on the podcast.
And sometimes what's going on there, we can't like really get publicly into. Like we're just like, okay, so this is just for you guys. We're not going
to Right.
Yeah, this is what we're going to do. So
I love it. Nice. Well, thanks for having me on, guys. This is really great. Beautiful.
It was fun. I'll have you back for sure. It's the second time. Man. We'll do more freaking camps out stuff too, and we can record some stuff too. So but yeah, so if you've gotten this far into this podcast, I will matter of fact, send me your address and I'll send you some bait because it's amazing.
Yeah.
But if you guys haven't checked out the Jigs and Biggs podcast or Instagram or YouTube, or he's everywhere, check him out, because I will tell you, I was listening to that podcast yesterday at work. I listened to it pretty much every time an episode comes out. I'm actually a jig head, so I get to see it recorded live, and sometimes I still go back and watch it again. So
Yep.
it's definitely worth checking out, guys. So
Appreciate
I want to
that,
thank Bobby for coming on and hanging out, and I'm sure we'll talk between now and then, but the next time I'll actually see you will be at that 200th episode dinner. So
Awesome. It's going to be good. We're going to have ourselves a good time, man.
all right, we're going to get ourselves out of here, guys, but thank you again for coming along with us.